All right.
All right, now we're live.
Here we go. We're in the money.
Yes, about time. Okay. Yeah, so let's get started here. Let me pull this up.
Sounds perfect. Oh, look, I can see your stuff. I mean, I have it.
Okay, great.
Cool. Yeah.
Great.
So people who are talking on this can see it. That's awesome.
Nice. Okay, that's great.
Yep.
Let's hope it doesn't fail this time. All right.
Let's hope the skies are with us and the angels sing. Go for it.
I hope Robin Williams,
Robin will help us out.
I hope so.
He will.
I really do. Yeah, so we're here. We're talking about Robin Williams' death, and we're talking about why. Where's the evidence that shows that Robin Williams committed a suicide? In these 35 pages that we have here, do we have anything that shows that Robin Williams committed suicide, or is this just another wild guess like we see with a lot of these Hollywood cases? What's your view, Samantha?
Well, I think that we've got evidence that there's definitely something wrong, and it's hard to put your finger on it. It's definitely possible, but it's not probable in my personal opinion, that it was a suicide. I mean, it's possible. And what I mean by that is it's not probable. Like when I say that, it means I don't think that's the actual cause of death. I think something else is involved. So I think we have evidence of everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's hard to really argue with that, looking at this stuff here, but one of the things, I think this is on page 4, and Here we go again with the prior medical history. See if I can go there.
Yep.
And the medical history that they show for Robin Williams, I thought was pretty interesting. That he suffered from Parkinson's. He suffered from deep depression, from what they say, and a recent increase in paranoia. I think that was a statement that really got to me.
Me too.
That was pretty odd, right?
Yes. So I can tell you for sure, and you should know this going forward, that the person they redacted in these reports, do you want to know who it is?
Yes, I do.
It's his lifelong assistant, personal assistant. Her name is, hang on one sec, I just had it, because she becomes very interesting in the story. Of course, I didn't write it down. Give me one sec. Crap.
I just pulled up page
one thing
4.
I didn't write down for all the notes I took. What?
I just pulled up page 4 so people can see exactly what we're talking about. I noticed this same page is in there 2 or 3 times, and each time it's redacted a little bit more.
Her name's Rebecca. Her name's Rebecca Spencer, and she was his lifelong personal assistant. But we will definitely talk about her later because she, to me, is very strange.
Why is she strange? What makes her so interesting?
Well, what bugs me about her is that she was good friends with him, which is normal. The fact that she worked with him very closely, so closely that she decided that day at his house to pass a note under the door or something to check on him. But she's mentioned in this report, and his ex-wife or his widow is the one that says, oh, you can tell me anything or tell her anything. But before this all happened, she had a history of following him around when he moved. So when he moved, she up and moved her husband and herself to be closer to him numerous times, which I thought was really strange. He didn't require it at all. Obviously, she had travel expenses, but she would just up and move 5 minutes from him everywhere he went. Kind of strange to me.
That is.
Right?
And she was there, why? She was here, or was she in the house at this time?
She was in the house. She's the name that's redacted numerous times. She's the one who slipped the note under his door.
Right, but she was living there, or she was just...
I think she was just, she lived 5 minutes away. So I think she just swung by, hey. And when I guess she asked the wife, how's he doing today? And she was like, well, he had really good night's sleep last night, or he's been sleeping still or something. He was in a good mood when he went to bed, she said. So I think the friend asked how he was doing and was checking in. Well, the wife left the house and then came back, and there was about, I think I read a couple different things, but on here, about 11:55 is when she snuck the note under the door, and he wasn't responding to the knocks. So that's when she busted in, I guess, or picked the lock and called 911. So I wouldn't pick the lock on my boss's door. Just saying.
Well, I mean, after that long, right? Why not?
Maybe he's sleeping in, though. He didn't have good sleep. Like, why can't he just be sleeping late?
And he didn't have his
phone
in there?
He did, actually. His phone was in his pocket in a charging case, but it was completely dead. Mm-hmm. Weird. Mm-hmm. Totally dead. Mm-hmm. And they had to plug it in and turn it on after they took him, took him off the ligature, although the ligature stayed attached and stabilized for the coroner. So they actually took it out of his pocket when they went to photograph his possessions at the coroner's office, which this, by the way, was done in a coroner's facilities, but it was done by actually really good medical examiners and forensic pathologists, which should be said. The phone was taken out and the widow gave them the entry code. And on his laptop, on his phone, and on all of his devices, like his iPad, everything, there is no sign of anything suicidal ideation, nothing at all.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That's in here too as well.
Yep, and he was looking up medications to possibly replace ones he didn't like for his condition on his iPad that night.
Yeah, because there were some that were making him that he just didn't feel right about, right? Some of those meds. It sounds like he was on a lot of meds.
He didn't specify. But I do have the list of meds and what they're for. I have their half-life too.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I have as much information as I could get you regarding how the toxicology and the wording works, yeah. As much as I can explain, I'd like to, but the parts I can't, I'll admit it.
Yeah, this officer says, I searched the subject's pockets and removed an iPhone and a battery charging cover. And okay. He was not wearing a wristwatch or ring. I thought that was interesting. Why would he need to have those rings given away to somebody for safekeeping? Those wristwatches, sorry.
Well, he wore a ring a lot. There's a ring, actually. I always say he reminds me of my dad. He wears a ring in almost everything I've seen him in except for movies. And he reminds me so much of my dad. I've always noticed because my dad has an American Airlines heirloom ring, and he wears it because of his father's role at the Logan Airport American Airlines wing. So he has that, and Robin's ring looks similar. So I think it's interesting they noted that because I think he wore it a lot. But the wristwatch thing gets more fascinating when you realize that, one, we don't know who he brought them to in the sock the night before, saying he was upset that someone would get them. And two, his wife, his widow, later after arguing with the kids about the estate, asked for one wristwatch, and he got it.
Really?
Yep, strange. I mean, she asked for the tuxedo they got married in. We'll go over that later, but yeah, she's another oddity that I'm like, who the hell? She's not.
Do you know how long? Do you know how long they were actually married?
Almost 4 years. She actually took the liberty of going on a honeymoon trip to Hawaii. She planned for herself because he was dead. So they met in rehab as well, which makes it interesting to me. Not because I think people in rehab can't be rehabilitated, but because it wouldn't surprise me after that if she was the type that wanted to take, even if she did or didn't have a return of addiction. She also signed a prenup before they got married.
Well, that's good, right? That shows she had good faith, doesn't it?
Until you notice that until the facts came out about her arguing over the estate with the kids. I mean, it got nasty. And the argument over the estate was so ridiculous. She wanted to start her own trust and put everything together into a trust fund for all 4 of them, plus her children, when her kids were like, no, his last wishes are clearly stated in his paperwork, and you're trying to make ambiguity happen when it's not in existence at all. Really hard she was trying to get things. It was ridiculous. It was very, very shallow to me.
Do you know what it means on page 3 where it says that the person was found deceased secondary to an apparent hanging in a locked bedroom? What does it mean when they say secondary? That kind of threw me off.
Secondary, could you repeat the sentence? Secondary to...
it's on page 3. I should have got the whole page. I have it right here in front of me.
No, I'm here. Hang on.
Page 3, it says... because it's all blacked out. 63-year-old male with a history of censored was found deceased secondary to an apparent hanging in a locked bedroom in his residence.
I actually
I don't know
don't know what that would mean if you like. And the funny thing about these kinds of paperwork is there's a lot of things that are universal, and there's still as many things that are not. So state by state, you'll see a lot of the same stuff, and the requirements federally I actually can give you. But state by state, it differs. So that wording we may never know the meaning of, because it might be a way they code things in California that we don't use anywhere else.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, I would think that, well, he died of something else, and then secondary to that was an apparent hanging. Like, I don't know. That just
Yeah,
threw me off anyway.
Yeah, but to write the narrative and say secondary too wouldn't make sense, because they're writing about the moment they're supposed to write it like how they saw it as they go through it. They're not supposed to jump to future stuff or like go past with knowledge they had. They're just supposed to write the facts. So he wouldn't know anything secondary or primary walking into it. There's no way he can tell, and that's not his job. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And this was written by, what's the coroner's name? I'm looking at that too.
I have the coroner's name. There was Robert Doyle, and it was signed off by Lieutenant Coroner Keith Boyd of Tiburon in Napa County. Both of them are actually excellent medical examiners and forensic pathologists.
So who's this D. Harris? Who's he? Oh.
Where am I seeing D. Harris?
D. Harris on page 1, on place of death on number 3.
See, I can't access page 1 as you. Are you clicking through it? Where are you looking?
Yeah, I don't think I have page 3. Of course, I have number 3.
I haven't seen Harris at all anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, Harris is.
Do you notice on the first page that it says date of report is November 5th of that year, and he died that August? What the hell?
Yeah, I thought that was a little odd too. Why would it take that long? I guess for the final.
I would guess redaction. I would guess redaction probably, as well as toxicology reports, but I'm guessing they also put things out they needed to take back. Or needed to have it fully redacted by lawyers.
Okay.
But also tox reports will add to that, but not that long. I mean, he died August 11th. It's 6 to 8 weeks, and with him, he was probably fast-tracked. So I guarantee you they didn't wait till friggin' November. But like I said, I'm guessing they released an original and then went, oh, shit, we got to take that back. You know?
Okay. I guess that makes sense. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Yeah.
He was cremated, and I know that shouldn't really bother me as much as it does.
It bothers me.
It's kind of weird to me. I mean, he wasn't a Christian as far as we know, right? He wasn't like
I
somebody,
don't believe
and he
so.
never. And
I don't
never
believe
said
so.
anywhere that he didn't want to be cremated, right?
He said he wanted to be cremated, as far as I know, and then spread over San Francisco. But either way, cremation is always odd unless it's written in stone to me, because I feel like it's so easy. Once you cremate a body, there's nothing else you can do. So it's like if you cremate really quickly, which I've seen happen in a number of cases, but here he definitely wrote it from what I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he loved the city of San Francisco. Yeah.
So I have up right now, I have the results of the toxicology, and I have no idea what I'm looking at here. I could probably spend an hour and figure it out, but if you know,
I'll decode
really help us.
Yeah.
Decode this, yes, please.
No problem. I'll do the best I can.
This is still on page 3. Okay.
Yep, I have the tox report stuff written up on mine, so I can send it to you later. The first thing they said that they had was in 40 nanograms per milliliter. It was mirtazapine. It's an antidepressant, and it has a half-life of 20 to 40 hours. So when I say half-life, it means that half of it is gone within those hour spans, and then it continues to decrease by half until it's gone. So within 20 to 40 hours, it will eventually disappear from the system. But at the time they tested it, it came up as 40 nanograms per milliliter, which is acceptable.
Okay.
Does that make sense at all, or why do you sound confused?
Oh, it just blows my mind. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Okay, so let me help you here, okay? So people that are drugged with GHB, right? GHB has a half-life of 15 to 30 minutes, I believe. So a lot of times they feel they're drunk or think they're drunk, and when they go the next day after they realize they've been drugged, there's no way to find GHB in their system when the hospital does tests. It's gone. And it's gone because the half-life disappears completely from the system within that 15 to 30 minutes. Does that make sense?
So that tells that he had taken this within the last day or so?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would take from it. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would take, that's what I would take from this, yes. And this is just based on my personal study and my study at school. The next one is the same half-life, the 20 to 40 hours, so the dose within that day of methylmercazepine. He was positive for that. It wasn't given in nanograms per milliliter, but it's another antidepressant. So both of those were actually prescribed to him, and I believe he started taking years ago.
Okay.
Caffeine.
Positive caffeine.
Yeah, we know what that means. Its half-life is 5 to 6 hours, but the problem here, and this is what I don't understand, is in addition to it, he tested positive for theobromine. Together, those two things can really do damage to the heart, and his heart was already bad. So the half-life of the theobromine is 18 hours, and it has a variety of side effects. Caffeine and the theobromine tend to go like together hand in hand, but the heart rate can become deathly. It can, I guess, cause death in several ways, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't understand all of them. But it's weird. And how 5 to 6 hours, I mean, was he up late that night, early morning, having coffee, like eating chocolate? Like if its half-life is 5 to 6 hours, what? And I don't believe it was in his stomach contents.
Could that be a caffeine pill?
Maybe.
Because, I mean, if nobody saw him since the previous night around 8 p.m., right? No.
I believe it was around 10:30.
Around 10:30? Okay. So if nobody saw him past then, unless he has a coffee maker in his room or something.
Or he can get up, too, while they're sleeping. He can get up and make coffee while they're sleeping. I do it all the time, make tea.
That's true.
It's possible. I'm just saying, but it's still 5 to 6 hours, and I don't think it was in his stomach contents, if I remember correctly. So that's why I say caffeine pill, though, not bad thinking. Could be.
Okay.
He was also tested positive for levodopa, which actually has a half-life of 1.5 hours. It's wicked fast. It says that it's for Lewy body dementia, but my wife, who's a medic, mentioned that there could be a medication that made it last in his system longer. If there were other things he took that affects levodopa's half-life. That's a lot of chemical science I don't know about. But if it's still in there and it's measuring 0.31 micrograms per milliliter, I feel like there's going to be something that extended it.
Okay.
And then there's carbidopa, which sounds like a weird word. Carbidopa, it says it's not reported. I go into that later in my writing, explaining why that is. But they actually tested for a variety of other substances, and all they said was if it doesn't come up within the detectable amounts per milliliter, that's why they say it's negative. Otherwise, it could be in the system and just not coming up in the amounts detectable. So we don't really ever know what's in the system. We just measure it for a certain range.
Okay, but there's nothing there that would lead you to think that that would help contribute to the theory that he committed suicide.
Well, here's the thing is he went to bed that night in a great mood, I guess. We'll get into that later. It seems like he was actually really going for the better. But the thing is if you look at stuff later, I mean, he could have been on a drug, or he could have, for all we know, it says it tested for amphetamine, cocaine, but it only tests so it shows up if it's in so many parts per milliliter. So if it doesn't come in that high a part, because, cocaine, for example, goes so quick through your body, he could have just as easily taken it, and cocaine will make you commit suicide in a second. So, I've been on cocaine. So it's one of those things where you take it and you need more and more and more. And the truth is that goes out of your system quite fast. So if that was in his system and he was going through the cycle and he was going through ups and downs, I think that could contribute for sure.
Okay. So here we get into number 53, the medical cause of death. Maybe this is where that secondary thing comes into play. Maybe asphyxia was first and then hanging was second?
Well, here's the thing is this is such a common misconception. So manner and cause of death are actually two different things. So there's only so many, and I get them mixed up all the time, but I know this is how I explain it. There's only so many manners, if I remember correctly, manners of death: suicide, homicide, accidental, natural, and undetermined. And then they specifically go into it, like what it is that did it in cause, if I remember correctly. So, for example, here it would be suicide via ligature hanging, and ligature strangulation, or they could pick one or the other. But you have to say ligature. If they said manual, that would be with the hands, obviously. But later you'll see when they talk about the different parts of the body that he has no damage to the parts that should have crushed his breathing. He has nothing that shows he suffocated, which is very weird to me. We'll get there. The bones that are normally crushed are not crushed. They're in great tact. It's like, what the hell is that? I'd also like to take a second and dispel the rumor that it had anything to do with autoerotic asphyxiation, which pisses me off. The towel
Can you
that
explain
had...
what that is? Explain
Yeah.
what that is.
That's people that like get off and have sex and like enjoy like whatever by suffocating. They think that it increases their orgasm. It's the thing that ties the two together, or people think does, is the fact that he had a towel tucked into the ligature, and it looks like he did that for comfort purposes because the ligature was a nylon belt that would have fucking hurt like a bitch. So I'm guessing that people tied it together, and I'll tell you what. Later in my research, I come up with a conversation between the detective and the widow and the assistant. And he says to them, you know, was he into anything? You know, he's kind of questioning them and specifically asking questions about other stuff. Then the assistant comes back and says, oh, are you talking about the towel? And starts talking about that, like very oddly. Very randomly, I think he says even. But he was not into autoerotic asphyxiation. 3 of his wives, all 3, including the widow in question, all say he was not into that. There's also no discussion of any former prostitutes or people that he slept with on the side, who I guess there were a few. They all said the same thing, that he was not into that. So
where did that come from? Why does that police officer ask them that?
Well, it came about because I want to say the assistant mentioned, because of the towel on him, do you think it's autoerotic or something? However it came up, it's because of the towel tucked into the ligature. Because the nylon belt hanging you would hurt like a son of a bitch. So if you really want to die like that, you're going to try to make comfort happen, even though I don't understand why, if you're going to be uncomfortable ultimately. But he tucked some sort of towel between himself, like his skin, and the ligature itself. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily autoerotic. It's just common in autoerotic asphyxiation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm
it's common.
Curious. Yeah.
Weird, right? It's weird.
It's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird that it would even be brought up. I don't know.
Oh, I know. But it's like they got to ask everything, I'm sure. And because I know not long before that, I think, was David Carradine. So they probably had to be like, hey, man, like, what's this about? Not even, I mean, Robin Williams was very much open about his drug use, his alcohol use, his sexual preferences. They probably had to check just to be thorough, which I kind of respect. So. The rigor is interesting too.
Why is that?
So they don't say anything about taking an internal temperature, which can be really hard to do, especially on a dead body, especially when they have feces involved and all that. Either way, your job as a medical examiner and a coroner, whoever you are, is to take an internal temperature using a rectal thermometer. Regardless, you can still kind of gather a little bit about the body and about time of death and all that by doing certain things. So, for example, there's something called rigor mortis, obviously, which is the acids in your body's muscles breaking down and forming these bridges that make your body stiff. To make it simple, I mean, there's more to it. There's liver mortis, which is basically the same idea. That's wrongly stated. Not liver mortis. I don't want to say it that way. There's pattern of lividity, which is how the blood settles, and it can help tell you what position they were in when they died. So, for example, your pattern of lividity or your blood gathering will happen in your lower extremities if you're standing up when you are killed, and you're continuing to be propped up so that it flows to your legs. Or, like, say you sit in a chair, you will be found dead in the chair, and you would have all the blood in your legs, your lower extremities. Are you getting sick over there? You all right?
Yeah.
No, really, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for example, he was cool to the touch, or cool palpation, they mentioned, which tells me that it was cool. Obviously, it was cool to the touch. It said that something called blanching, which is when the whitening happens, like if you press down on something on your body, like a bruise, and it goes white for a second, that's called blanching. At post-mortem, it happens almost immediately, but it won't do the same thing if the lividity pattern is fixed. So it seems though he stated like blanching was something that happened when he put moderate pressure on it, that maybe he hadn't been dead very long. And it also says that, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. It says they also use pressure to break the rigor, which means with moderate pushing that they could break the rigor bands. Again, very strange, which means he probably wasn't super stiff. So there's a table you can go by that says if they're cool and they're stiff, they've been dead over 36 hours. And if they're stiff enough to hold rigor, I mean, that's where I would think he'd be. If he was cool and flexible, which I'm pretty sure is not what we're seeing here, it would be 8 to 36 hours dead. So I think he was dead before this, but they claimed that he was alive 10:30 the night prior. So I don't think the two go hand in hand. It doesn't make sense to me. I hope I explained that right. That's a confusing one.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the whole thing really is, because
it's weird.
It's like everything that I'm reading here is saying that he was not suicidal.
Yep.
There's nothing they found that would lead them to believe that he was going to commit suicide. There's no suicide note, obviously.
No attempt in the past, nothing. Yeah.
So what do they use to say that tells them that he committed suicide?
Well, let me tell you something important. When you start with, I mean, this is what I've been trained, and I'm not a fully trained medical examiner or coroner or anything like that. So from what I understand from my studies that I did in school when I was in school, and as well as my personal research, is that every time you approach a death and you're doing an autopsy, you start with homicide immediately to get rid of it and make sure it's not the cause. And these days, especially with all the suicides rising, they tend to go right to suicide when they see something, because think about all the cases and all the issues they have to deal with. It's quicker if you just go, okay, it's a suicide because clearly it looks like one. And many times this is unfortunate because they miss obvious signs of homicide. It happened to a good friend of mine. It's terrible. I had a problem with, I don't know if you saw this, but there were imperfections on the inside of the closet door that were within his reach just barely, and it looked like he clawed himself, like he was clawing the wall. I don't like that. If I'm right, I don't like that at all.
Was that where they say something about his fingernails?
His fingernails were actually fine, they said. It looked like the inside of the door. The rest of the door and the closet had been painted nicely. It did say that there were marks on the inside of the door, and when you are about to die like that, your need to survive kicks in, and he was touching the floor. He could have easily stood up unless he was drugged, overpowered, or positioned in such a way that he made those marks out of panic. If you look at the sections or the pictures of walls from Auschwitz, burn rooms, you can see the fingernail marks, and they're much longer than the ones mentioned, but they're still there enough that I go, oh God, I hope he didn't die like afraid or trying to save himself, but he could have stood up.
Yeah.
So, no reason not to. No breaks in his skeleton, and we'll get to his neck in a minute. His neck blows my mind.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, the knife found next to his body, we should definitely talk about that. Did you see that?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought he was left-handed for sure, but then I looked at pictures with my wife to see if he was a lefty, and he actually has marks. He has numerous photos, rather, showing he's left and right-handed. So I think he was ambidextrous, but here's why that matters. So there were shallow cuts going horizontal and vertical that were not at all like danger. They weren't even bleeding. On his left wrist, if I remember correctly, which would mean his right side would have reached over to cut. There was a knife next to his bed, which he was staying in his stepson's room. There was a knife next to the bed that had dried blood on it that belonged to him, but also fingerprints on there that did not conclusively match to Robin. And that knife was a gift from one of the USO troops. I guess they used to give them to him a lot. So it's like an honor thing. I mean, if 9/11, my wife collects 9/11 knives, and people who give them to you, it's like an honor. So he kept them. But there was no bleeding in his wrist, so how did blood get on there? At least not from what I could find, bleeding in the wrist. Maybe I'm wrong, but couldn't find it. Hang on, I'm just going down my stuff. Anybody else?
Well,
everybody on here? Go ahead.
They did say, I thought they did say something about the, what is it here? The superficial cuts on the left wrist.
Right. But I don't believe they were bleeding. I can't find any proof, even in the post-mortem exam at least. I couldn't find anything saying that they were bleeding. but I know the cuts were there. But there's
So,
fingerprints on that knife that are inconclusive, saying they couldn't possibly not be Robin's, but the blood matches his. See what I'm saying?
hmm
hmm I thought what was really strange was his phone record the night before, if you want to talk real quick about that.
yeah, let's go to that.
Okay. So his last call was to Susan on the night before, so August 10th at 7:08 p.m., and she says that he was out getting her magazines. Now, here's the thing. Why would someone who's so famous go out to do such a menial task when they are totally overcome with paparazzi and people wanting autographs and all that? Why in the world would he do that? I mean, why wouldn't she just go if she wanted her own magazines? If he's trying to surprise her, people would have seen him out, but they didn't. So then it says he also contacted someone before this at 6:53 p.m., his second to last call, was the person that's redacted, who I cannot say for sure I know who they are. That's the person he called and said, I need you to wash my watches. And I guess he threw them all in a sock and said he was going to drop them by.
Isn't
There's
that
no
weird?
magazine. What?
Isn't that weird?
Obviously,
Isn't
I don't
that
think that's
odd?
normal at all. Yeah, that's weird.
I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't have a safe. He didn't have, like, he needed to get them out of his house. He wanted to keep them safe. Who did he want to keep them safe from, right?
I don't know, and that's the thing is I would think because his stepkids were away. I mean, unless he caught his stepkids going through his stuff maybe before this, but his stepchildren were away that evening, and I know his wife eventually got a watch. I'm not trying to say things are true that aren't. I'm just saying that I found that really bizarre, and I don't know anything for sure about magazines being there at the home for her or receipts or credit card checks or anything showing she's telling the truth. But according to her, when he came home, he was in a great mood. He offered to give her a foot rub and all this. And I think she was at a point where she was just really done with him, it seems. She didn't really seem to truly give a shit, if that makes sense. But that's my personal opinion and view, not necessarily truth. Let me see.
Yeah, and was there any indication that, like, were they ever separated? Said they were married for about four years. Were they ever separated? Anything like that was at least made public? I know generally they want to keep that stuff private, and really, especially because he's such a high-profile person, he would definitely keep something like that very, very quiet if there was any truth to that rumor.
Right, but here's what I'll tell you is I've looked at 2 different case studies who, I'll be honest, were done by friggin' simps, okay? There was stuff that was on their case studies, and I was like, are you fucking joking? Like, stuff that was really stupid and not believable, but the one thing they both had in common was that they both said he was suffering from severe relationship problems at the time, and I thought, where did they get that piece of info? So whether it came from a maid who worked in the house or a child of theirs or maybe even his assistant or what, maybe the wife told them, I don't know. But it does seem like there was a disconnect in my opinion, and I think from the outside it's easy to see a disconnect. I mean, if your husband's suffering and he's in a great mood, even if he snores or talks in his sleep, whatever, why wouldn't you want him with you? Like, I'd be concerned. I'd want him in the bed with me no matter how annoying he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
for him to be sent out of the room bugs me.
But that's a preference too, I mean,
Right.
that could have been maybe the first time they ever did that. I don't know. Maybe
it says he
these
had
documents
been sleeping in that room. So no, he'd been sleeping in there.
For a while.
Yeah. So it also says too in that bathroom attached to the room, which for people who are listening who don't know, he was staying in his stepson's room anytime the stepson wasn't there because of his talking in his sleep and restless inability to sleep, things like that. There was 2 closets in there. One of them was the one he was found hung in, and the other one was different. It was a separate closet. There was also a bathroom. The problem I see big time is in the bathroom, the toilet seat was down. The lid was up, and there was urine and toilet paper inside the bowl. But last time I checked, men put the seat up. So I feel like that's weird that it's in there. But he also had 300 cc's of urine in his body. So if he had gone to the bathroom, I would think his bladder would be not nearly as full. And he didn't, the lid's down. So it's like, I mean, men by accident, I'm a lesbian, so whatever, but men accidentally leave it up all the time. I never have had a problem with that because I feel like they have every right to just leave it because if we leave it, we don't put it back up for them. Like, I don't see the problem. But it's weird that he had all those 300 cc's. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's enough that it's uncomfortable. You would think he had gone to the bathroom. It also said there was a ginger ale can on the counter still with liquid in it that had no smell of alcohol at all and a wet washcloth with diluted blood on it. that they thought maybe. There was no blood elsewhere, and they collected this for evidence, and they never mentioned later if it matches him or not.
Yeah, I think they say diluted fluid, possibly blood.
Yeah, they do say that. Let me
The
see.
washcloth had a reddish substance on it. Okay.
Yeah, and when it's a wet washcloth, because when it dries, it becomes brown. So it would have been, you know what I mean?
So does that mean it was kind of fresh, maybe? Because obviously it's damp. Yeah, okay. I see what
with wetness, it would be semi-new, but she explains it in an interview at one point by saying that there was one day that he hit his head and she heard it, and she was like, hey, are you okay? And he had a washcloth to his head and holding it, and she said, did you hit your head? And he nodded. But she says that so randomly. It wasn't asked of her. It had nothing to do with the autopsy. It was just something she said, one day he did. And I was like, no, that doesn't, even if he did do that, which is totally possible, it sounds weird that that's what she went out of her way to mention. Like, it's just her context is so weird.
They're building a story.
Yeah, I think so. It also says he had a diagnosis of Parkinson's that made him depressed May of the same year he died, but yet on record it just says Lewy body dementia. It didn't say Parkinson's. Later, it says after all the tests are over that both were present, or one, I think. But anyway, they checked at the advice of somebody medical, which is redacted. They checked him into a rehab facility for drug and alcohol at the Lodge at Hazleton in Minnesota the July before. He died, and it says that they wanted to make sure he repeated the 12 steps to keep him on the wagon. What? Like, his memory wasn't good. He could wake up scared, not know where he is. I don't think at that point he was looking to access alcohol at any point. I don't think he was doing that. There's no talk of that. So why check him into a place that's foreign, out of his home, when he's freaked out and paranoid even, just to be like, here, stay on the wagon. Like, your wife can keep an eye on you. That's why you love each other.
What would he be paranoid of? I don't understand that. I have a hard time with the paranoia thing.
Me too. And I think with Parkinson's and things like that, the anxiety is so high that it's possible. But
it makes you paranoid.
Yeah, but to be paranoid just about your watches and nothing else, I think is strange. And then it's like, well, maybe he was paranoid. Maybe he's threatened, and we don't know. He saw a lot of shit when he was at the USO tours, which he did a lot of. He saw a lot of shit overseas. He met a lot of people that probably talked to him about a lot of stuff, and that was probably heavy on him. So maybe he was paranoid because of things. And at the time, I don't remember who was president. Was it Obama still in 2014? He could have had paranoia from that whole situation. I had fucking paranoia from Obama being fucking president. Like, really? No, I'm not. What?
Yeah, PTSD.
No, I don't have PTSD, asshole. I don't have PTSD, and I'm not saying I don't like Obama. I'm sure he's lovely, except he's a Satan. Him and Hillary Clinton, I feel like I'd rather never go near for the rest of my life. They make me feel like gross and like unshowered. But regardless, I digress. I hate them. It's terrible. I don't like to hate, but there I am. But I'll tell you what, I mean, back then there was a lot of issues, especially with people dying, especially with Illuminati discussion, especially with people regularly being paranoid. And it's like, okay, that's one thing, but his paranoia was beyond celebrity, beyond anxiety, I think beyond sickness. It was very strange and random. And they said it had built and become a recent thing, but it's like, it sounds like it was a one-time deal almost, not like a multiple issue thing. I know he had a terrible panic attack on the set of one of his movies not long before he died as well. And his long-term makeup artist had said that she was trying to comfort him because he couldn't remember his lines. And he kept saying that he felt like...
Know.
What?
No, finish. Good, no, finish.
Oh, no. She's just been his long-time makeup consultant, and I guess he was crying to her at the end of the day saying he couldn't access his lines, he couldn't find them. He was usually pretty good at it. But that can come with aging as well. So maybe he was so nervous about this diagnosis that, again, we don't really know what he was told. And we don't really know what he had and didn't to begin with. Plus, he had heart problems from before that. And then, again, he was being medicated, and it seemed like the medication really changed his personality. And I don't know which one because I can't tell. But she said he cried a lot and was upset, feeling like he couldn't access his true self, but it was in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what drugs will do to you. That's one of the biggest things that I was like, this guy was taking. I read somewhere he had a daily pill dispenser box marked Sunday through Saturday.
He did,
and the person had just filled this, and Mrs. Williams said the subject had complained in the past about not liking the way some of his medications made him feel.
Yes.
They believed he was taking them as prescribed. That's a big, big problem because the whole now we're talking about pills again. Now we're back to those meds that can get into your brain, that can do some crazy stuff. I mean, we're talking mental stuff.
I know.
That's serious to me.
I know.
Medication, even if the medication causes somebody to do something, it's not a suicidal thing. Again, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I disagree, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've actually I'll tell you the truth. I was in the hospital for a week last September because I had an allergic reaction to a medication I was on that was similar to like an Adderall kind of thing. It was actually called Midasis. And I got out of control to the point where my own wife didn't recognize me. And she's like, I don't know what you're doing. I swallowed pills and I almost killed myself successfully, but I don't remember any of it. So I was taken to the hospital, and when they came in and started doing the work, you have to really look at it and go, what is the thing behind this that's hurting me that obviously made me do this, right? So I sat down and said, what happened? I talked to my psychiatrist. I talked to multiple doctors and counselors, and they all said the same thing, that my normal behavior, that my normal diagnosis, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, they said that it was just hurt by that reaction, and that the whole thing propelled me to try to commit suicide. They just don't know why. It's just a reaction to what's the capsule and what's in the capsule, which I thought was really bizarre. I mean, afterward it was scary as shit because they were like, you almost did major damage, and I have no recollection of it whatsoever. I also know that in the past I've taken psychoactive drugs for things that my OCD is really difficult. But I'll tell you what, I've taken an antidepressant that's made me so sick before. I immediately was like, we got to get me off this. And there's pills that you can take right away. I mean, as a kid, when they give you Adderall, you're like, I don't like this. Fuck this. And if you stop taking it or you keep taking it as prescribed because doctors tell you to, against what you're feeling, that's normal. I mean, not everybody listens to themselves. They think doctors know everything, So you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, but that was not really you. That was the drugs doing
right.
that.
That's what I mean. So why couldn't drugs have made this happen? To a degree, I have to wonder.
Right.
I have to keep that in. I mean, I can't, honestly, if this was like a runaway, absolutely, it's not like, again, with the Crowley thing, you can certainly say in there it's still possible it's murder-suicide, but probable? No fucking way. Do you know what I mean? It's just not probable. It's a possibility, but so is, monkeys flying out of my ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything can be possible.
Yeah. Possible, so, but we need some proof. You can see those monkeys, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. No, exactly. The other thing, too, that should be mentioned is my wife, who's also, like I said before, she's a medic, not a doctor, but a medic, said that she noticed he was prescribed an antibiotic before his appointment with a dentist coming up. And right away, she said that's for a heart murmur, which I found proof of later. She said that that's for a heart murmur, but it had never been mentioned publicly. Neither has cardiovascular issues, from what I remember. Do you remember anything mentioned about his heart before this?
No.
Yep. And the detective ended up getting records from the Cleveland Clinic and from his primary care because his heart. We'll get into that, the official stuff that they talk about, the sternum, the scars and stuff. He had serious heart problems, but I don't remember them saying anything about it. Question for you, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
Identification was done via taking postmortem thumbprints, a right thumb specifically, and comparing it with the one on file for his license in California. Do you guys have to do that to get your license?
You do now, yes. And
what year did that start?
That was 2014. Yes. That was
really?
It just had kicked in. Might have been a couple years before that, but I do remember. I wonder if I have my license on. Actually,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
show on your license.
It's so stupid. It actually it does not show on my license, but I do remember having a long conversation with them because that bothered me. I'm trying to see. I can't see in here when I got this last taken, but yeah, that was a big deal, and I was not happy about that. But I do believe that was before 2014.
Okay, because in New Hampshire, we only had to get it done because I was a teacher. So I remember standing in line with people who were like, why do we have to do this? And I'm all for where you're at, but I was like, guys, we're dealing with children, and we're trusted with them more hours a day than their parents. Just shut up and get your finger scanned and get the fuck out of here. Because I remember thinking, like, why are you afraid to get your thing done? Like, what's your issue? Like, are you a perp or what? But that's me thinking about that for people in a job. That's not the same as what you're saying. You know, that makes perfect sense. If you're not registering to be a teacher, you'd be pissed. I don't blame you.
Oh yeah, I mean, but it's also, well, what are they going to do with it? What do they need it for? And why wouldn't I just give that to my local sheriff's office than give it to you guys who are going to share it with the whole state?
Yeah, and if that was the case, we'd know who the fucking Zodiac is, I would think. Come on, like
we know Zodiacs.
Yeah, like honestly, think about all the things that have been solved. If we had fingerprints going everywhere, you know, I'm all for the DNA thing, even though most people are like, oh, you know, the DNA bit is you don't want to register it if it's your third cousin, could be not approving of it, and yeah, it's like whatever we have to do to make the streets safer. I'm fine with personally, but I see why people aren't. And so, a state like California with so many unsolved crimes, seeing the fingerprint is dangerous. But at the same time, if that were the case and they were using it right, then they would be finding and solving all of these cases, in which in your case, that's clearly not what they're doing. You know,
correct.
At least it doesn't look like it to me.
No.
Real quick, can we mention his neck? Robin's neck?
Please.
It was elongated.
You have to break all of this down for us, by the way. So.
Sorry, I'm trying real hard. I don't mean to like go off the thing. Okay. Yeah, so here's the deal. They did full body x-rays after transport to the morgue. They secured the towel and the ligature in place to make sure they had the proper photos and documentation, because the knots that are tied and things like that can all catch hair in them or different serums from other people or whatever. So you have to be really careful. They also usually do full-body radiographs or x-rays once they get them into the office, if they're smart about what they do, which these guys did that, and thank God they did. There was not a single fracture in his entire body, but the neck was visually elongated enough that the cop on scene noticed. And I thought that was weird, because when you die from asphyxiation or choking or manual strangulation, things like that, I don't want to say for sure because I'm not a doctor, but I'm almost positive, like 98% sure, that there's a bone in your throat called the hyoid bone that breaks if you have it. And most people do. It's like 1% that don't have the hyoid bone. But it breaks when you're strangled with anything. And his hyoid bone and his trachea and all of his cartilage was all completely untouched. Which I was like, what? And they don't mention that his neck was elongated. Obviously, when they took him off the ligatures and just bounced back, he's not friggin' Gumby. And they still said he measured in it about 5. They said they approximated 5'6". I don't know if they measured it or not, but his height was 5'7", and with a long neck, you'd think he would have come in at 5'8". If they measured it, you know. But I don't know if it was measured or they did a guess, like looking at it. Either way, it seems they didn't mention it at all in the report, but on scene, the detective is like, "Whoa, giraffe neck." Like, I just think that's weird. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll add that to the growing list.
Right.
So, I mean, they walk in there, they see Robin Williams on the ground, sitting, right? He was sitting.
One butt cheek was sitting, and the other one was suspended about an inch above the ground. Yep.
So how was his body found in a seated position then?
It's seated, and he was crooked, so that one buttock, I believe the right one, I have to double check, but one of them was touching the floor, and the other one was barely suspended above it, like just briefly, like hitting it. And his right leg was extended. It was bent at the knee and extended almost like it should have been over his left leg, but his left leg was also bent slightly at the knee, but it was turned all the way left. So his legs are in a weirdly uncomfortable position for what happened. The towel was between his skin and the ligature. And again, if I remember correctly, the ligature itself was tied or stuck on purpose between the door jamb and the door frame. And it was actually quite jammed in there and well done, because I feel like I read the detective had a hard time getting into that closet and opening and closing that door afterward, which I thought was interesting. And then so strange, because they take so many precautions and then they don't. Like, he's so famous, they had to padlock his body into a bag. That's insane to me. I mean, obviously there were lots of celebrities have had that happen, but like, I mean, going from person to person for exams and stuff, he's so well loved, I guess, or maybe sought after. They had to lock him in. Like, holy shit. I just thought that I think Amy Winehouse is the only one I know of that's also been locked in. But I think a few others as well. Prescriptions of his medication and the amount of pills remaining in the bottles and containers. I didn't go through that entirely, but I'm pretty sure that didn't match right, which we mentioned earlier. Oh, yeah. So what the hell was the end about? Where it gets to the top, where it's like going through the different diagnoses, and he goes like 1 to like 17, diagnosing everything except puberty. Like, is this guy for real? That's the one part I was like, who's this dude? Like, everybody else is supposed to be so good on it that it's the same person. I'm like, what? It starts with hanging and it lists like all these things and why it makes sense, but it's like all you have to do is mention a few and then put the rest in a separate report. But okay. Number 2 talks about incised wounds, the ones on his wrist. So that's the second diagnosis. Okay. Third is a healing right arm abrasion with no explanation. Again, why bother? 4 was hypertension, valvular arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease with history of palpitations, which would make sense about the antibiotic. But that comes before Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. Like a bruise comes before those two. I mean, I think that's a little bizarre. I feel like those things would come first and how likely they were to kill him. Like, maybe I'm wrong. 6, history of drug and alcohol abuse, which isn't diagnosed, and he came out clear. He also had been on the wagon for 20 years, they said. Things from the clinics and multiple different samples that were taken from him alive all showed he was drug and alcohol free. It said no skeletal breaks, no note of stretch to his neck. I think that's bizarre. 8, a diagnosis is an obvious appendectomy. Why is that a diagnosis? Like, what the fuck? 9, there's issue. Okay, so 9 is interesting because it's called trabeculation of the urinary bladder. So this here, I can tell you what that means. It means that in his bladder over time, there's been a thickening of the walls within it that makes kind of 2 sections almost in the bladder. So think of it like you can piss straight out, or it can actually go through sort of like a maze type thing, trying to get out of your exit, pee. And so it makes it a lot harder for you to pee if you have trabeculation. It can get really complicated, I guess, more so than 2 parts, but he had a hard time going to the bathroom, which again makes me wonder, you know, with 300 cc's of urine inside him, this makes sense, but then you talk about the urine that's in the bowl with no flushing, and you're like, what the fuck? Especially if he didn't shit. I mean, he wasn't sitting down. If the thing was down, you know, you would think he was pooping, but there's nothing in there. I'm just saying this like that's fact, you know. You can eliminate that way. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, yeah. It also says that his teeth were all his own and intact, which I think he should be very fucking proud of. He had blue eyes with petechial hemorrhaging, like small amounts of them, and no jaundice. Now, a little known fact about testing the different bloods and serums in the body, especially in an autopsy, is the fluid in the eye is actually the most telling fluid in the body. They did sample that, which I thought was a huge sign that they were quite good at what they did. Again, there's 2 to 3 people we're talking about. So there's one idiot who's saying, oh, bruise is more important than fucking Parkinson's. And then the other 2 are like, but we're going to take this sample and we're going to do all this other stuff that shows they've got a lot of good knowledge. So that confuses me. He had a 9-inch vertical midline scar extending along his inferior chest, which shows what's called a midline sternotomy. So he basically had to cut down his chest, open heart surgery. Left hip tattoo that they don't get into. Like, okay. Everything in the genitalia was normal externally. There was, of course, feces in the rectum, but this is common. There's also some stuck in the duodenum, which is common. No significant signs of decomposition. Again, interesting. Rigor, moderate but symmetrical, which we talked about earlier. He had spots called, I believe they're pronounced Tardu spots. They were found prominently on the right side of his body, and they're basically just spots of purple color that come into play when there's hardcore gravity, like pulling on the body downward. They'll just show up in random spots, so that makes sense. This is weird. Oh, Jesus, this one kills me. Excuse me, Jesus, I'm sorry about that, but this one gets me. Obliquely, which means the side of his abs, there was an oval-shaped, slightly indented, 4 by 1 inch oval-shaped, multicolor patch of post-mortem dried artifact in the lateral aspect of the right side of his torso. So basically saying right on the right side of his torso, slightly towards the back on his obliques, was this yellow, beige, green, slightly indented circle of artifact that dried that they never tested. What the fuck is that? Like, I'm sorry, but whatever you get on you, don't you think you should take samples of it and test it? But they didn't. And indented tells me that there's some trauma there, but it doesn't show. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and why? I don't understand.
Right. I don't either. Because if it says post-mortem dry artifact, it makes me go, okay, well, and I'll be perfectly honest and kind of crude, but like if this was like some sort of semen or like, it wouldn't be indented. That's weird. And if it's anything else that, you know, is a post-mortem dry artifact that causes an indent, well, you should fucking tell us what it is. Yeah. But it doesn't even say they took a sample from what I read. Let's see. His neck was slightly forward with his tongue protruding, yet the ligature margins were less obvious on the front of the neck. Again, weird, because his neck was tilting such a way that the ligature should have been strongly identified in the front. No injury of the cervical vertebrae, yet he just hung himself, and usually they die of breaking their necks or the hyoid bone being crushed. So even if with like the cut off air, this doesn't make sense to me. No internal or external bleeding. The neck cartilage was great looking, they said. So then how the fuck did this guy die? I got breaking down into the parts of the body when they talk about what they look like if you want to go there. Do you have questions or anything you want to say? I feel like I'm just babbling.
No, please. Keep going.
Okay. So abdomen says nothing remarkable. Everything looks fine. From stuff that we already know. Head, nothing seemed odd. The brain didn't seem to be too heavy or anything. The lesions of white matter should likely be noted in Parkinson's, but if to my knowledge, it wasn't investigated. And I think in the past, scientific research has proven that they don't have to show up each time, and I don't think they've studied it fully, so we can't do much with the brain matter part. But the neck says all soft tissues are pretty much good. The tongue was bit, which we knew, but no obstruction of his upper airway. What? So if he has no obstruction, no bleeding, no breaks of the hyoid bone, no breaks in the cervical vertebrae, how the fuck did he die? Like, again, what killed him? His heart was very large. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was dilated and enlarged. It's normal for a man his age to have a heart weight of 233 to 382 grams. His was 530, so that's huge. We can see you signing into your Google.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to.
Okay, as long as you try
I'm trying
to
pull up what you're. Yeah, I want to pull up what you're looking at. I just.
Oh, sorry.
It's way too slow. That's okay. That's okay. I want to give people the visual of what we're doing here.
I wish I could upload it to you. I have it.
No, yeah, I know. I have it too. Here, I just.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I'll slow down.
Don't have it on that one. Because I think that's going to be very important. People need to understand this is from a 35-page document that is from the coroner's report that I had not seen until I had mentioned this to you, and you sent it over to me within a few seconds. So that's pretty cool.
Well, here's the thing. But here's the thing is I'm also somebody who really it's going to sound weird to say I enjoy reading these, but I interpret these often for families that are given these things and told, well, everything looks good, especially with things that are actual homicide, that they say, oh, everything's fine, or they don't give a range or thing. And I've had a lot of parents especially come to me and go, why is it saying that my kid had this in there? Well, I have to tell them sometimes, VHP is made by the body as it breaks down, which is true, but it's to make X amount of grams, like that's outrageous. Or it'll say like, our body makes alcohol as it breaks down. That's true, but they still are obviously cocked according to the amount that's in their body. Like, but they'll give it to them and they won't say much. When they officially send it, the coroner and the people in charge don't tell them anything. And the ranges and the key on there is not very helpful, especially for people grieving. Like, well, I've done this more than a few times, but I sent that to you because back when Michael Jackson died, I'm the world's literally biggest Michael Jackson fan. Robin Williams is probably my second. And when Michael died, right away I said, this was a murder. This was not right. And people said, well, you're grieving. And I said, oh, okay. And then it came out, didn't it, that he was killed. So it's like, and the same thing with Robin. I didn't want to believe it, but when I read through the report, I kept going, what? Something's wrong that I can't put my finger on. And I still really can't. It's tough. Do you have it up for people to see it?
I don't because my internet went down for some reason.
Oh, shit. Is there a way I can do it?
Uh, yes, there might
I'll send it to
be.
you. Hang on. I'll attach it. Hold on. I think I downloaded it, didn't I? Shit.
Looks like it's coming. Looks like
Yep.
it's coming back up.
Okay. I'll get it
And
for
I
you
have
again and
it.
send it.
Okay.
I also should have sent you my notes, and I didn't do that. Hang on.
It's all trial and error.
What?
Trial and error.
Right. Autopsy report. Hang on. So download it and send it. I also have a CDC guide I wanted to send you of all the coroners and the rules for MEs across the nation. Have that. Did you get it back up?
Yeah, looks like it just came back up, so I'm just pulling it.
I got it.
Pulling it in. Come on, buddy.
Okay.
That's why I always select multiple computers, because for some reason this just loves to happen.
How many computers do you freaking have?
I got like 4 of them right now, just in case.
Holy shit.
Yeah, let's
You have
just
them
show
all
you
at
how
once?
often. Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay, hang on. I got it. I'm going to upload it to you. I would think so, right? I guess. Hold on. This here is going to send to you via Facebook Messenger. That's the PDF. If that helps.
Mm-hmm. I just had it here.
There you go. Can you hear what I'm typing?
Yeah, I can hear it a little bit.
Ah, shit, sorry.
It's okay.
All right, did you get my PDF?
Yeah, let me look at that. I'm trying to open this thing and...
Yeah, and I would say the part I'm on is towards the end. It's page, starts on page 18 with the body cavities at the bottom.
Okay. Go back. Which one did you send it to?
Your messenger on Facebook.
Is it just the 35-page document?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I want to say in advance, too, before we even get back into it, that, like, obviously there's other wording on here that I cannot make sense of. So if there's anything I skip that, I mean, obviously is questionable, feel free to speak up and we can note it and talk about it later, or I can do research on it. But there's parts from what I could gather, I summarized. So, again, I'm not a doctor. I just have common sense.
You just play one on TV.
Yeah, right? That's a good one. Good call. I'm not a doctor. I just play one. Just like I'm not a detective. I just have common sense and know the Crowley thing wasn't like suicide.
Yeah, I can look at things and figure them out.
Yeah, it's so weird the way puzzles work. And I'm not saying other people can't, or like, you know what I mean? But like, I get frustrated when cops especially, or like authorities try to feed me something that is total bullshit. That drives me insane. So to be like, you're not talking to the average moron. Like, this isn't right. And it's not fair for you to take advantage of that and act like you know everything when you aren't explaining it to people. There's an Einstein quote, Albert Einstein. He says a long time ago, his quote was, if you can't explain things so they're understood by anybody at any level, then you don't understand what you're talking about enough. Which is true. Are you with us yet?
Can you see my screen?
No. Yes, I can now. I'm just kidding.
You can now? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So
and
go
you're
to
on
page
18.
At the bottom where it says body cavities.
Okay. Let's go down.
TMZ. Big letters. Just in case we were wondering.
By the Z?
Yeah, the TMZ thing on the background kills me.
Yay. Okay. And my hair?
Keep going. It's the body cavities there. Okay, so I went through each part and kind of looked at, like, basically here it's saying the organs are in their usual place. There's no liquid accumulations within the body cavities or leaking out of them. The remote cardiac surgery he had done explained certain things that he mentioned before, diffuse pericardial adhesions. Those were explained. Nothing in the pleura. It says right lower quadrant of the abdominal cavity show that they had an appendectomy, which is normal. The blood has a serum-like consistency, which is good. The head. So the head is where we talk about how the brain was, I guess, of regular size, which I didn't double check that though. Free of arteriosclerosis, which would make me wonder how he was so affected by the things going on if he had nothing showing that it was growing, but okay. I'm not a doctor. This was tough. Relative pallor of the right substantia nigra. Basically, that means there's a paling in comparison to the right and the left lobes of the brain where this is. I have written down in my notes at the bottom what that means, but I'm not even there yet, so we can go back. The neck, see that's the neck. Injuries to the neck were described above. The cervical vertebrae, hyoid, tracheal, and laryngeal cartilages and petracheal soft tissues are normal. Like what? The upper airway is not obstructed. Awesome. So how did he die? What happened? The next one says he has a heavy heart, which I mentioned. No thrombus.
Let's stick on that neck for a couple seconds here, because that seems like a smoking gun.
To me, that's the big one, yeah. Because honestly, there's only been one case I can remember in the hundreds I've done where there was a young girl who had no hyoid bone, and they were trying to prove her boyfriend strangled her, but she had no hyoid bone, so they couldn't prove that he did anything to her neck. And that's the big one. There's very few people who don't have it. But his trachea, his larynx, the vertebrae of the cervical spine column, which is at the top, all the cartilages, and all the parts that are called petracheal soft tissues, the ones that show redness and they show spots when you're strangled because all the blood gets stuck in them. None of that shows anything for alarm. And the upper airway is not obstructed, and we also know there's no breaks in his whole body. So what happened?
You mentioned David Carradine.
Yep.
Who also, they claim, died of aorto asphyxiation, correct?
Yes, don't say also because Robin didn't. Not also.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying
Allegedly.
claim. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Only because there's been so much stuff thrown out there. But this is where you would want to see the same thing, right? So in those type of cases, you're saying this is not normal. What you're seeing here does not line up with anything like that, which actually matches.
No.
And that matches verbally what the wife said and what the other person, this Susan person who was next to him, said too.
Wait, what did they say?
They didn't say that there were any no signs of aorto asphyxiation or anything like that. They said he was
never interested in it sexually. They said he was never interested in it. There's nothing he ever watched that was pornography-based. There's no porn near the body. Nothing that showed he'd be interested in something like that. And his ex-wife said the same thing. No, he wasn't interested. But the look, I'm going to find the part, but there's one part where the detective's narrative on scene, or the coroner's investigator on scene, says that the neck looks obviously elongated. And it's like, okay, well then, here's the thing. When people hang themselves, they die either of breaking their own neck, crushing the hyoid bone, which causes an obstruction in the breathing pretty much, and also it's hard to hold your neck up without it, and things like that. And there's no sign of any trauma to it at all, and the upper airway is not obstructed. He bit his tongue, but that happens. I mean, what the hell? That's usually how they die if they hang themselves. So if none of that's present, then how did he die? Almost like he was drugged to death, I think, almost. I think it's possible the drugs got him, and he was placed in that position, if anything.
But does that match with the toxicology, with the results of the toxicology?
It's hard to tell. Good question. It's hard to tell because, like I said, I'm not a doctor, and the amounts of these things look like they're therapeutic. They don't look like they're alarming, except for the whole thing with caffeine and the other drugs that go together. Everything else, I mean, there were some drugs that were in his box for the day. Remember the thing you talked about? There were drugs in there that he hadn't taken, that he was prescribed, and they were the ones he had taken, as far as we know, that were in his body. But I have to wonder if there was something put in his system and he was put in that position. The only thing that makes me wonder is if that's possible that he would still show things like the spotting and the way that the body was settled. It would still show the blood spotting and stuff that it showed in the skin if he was drugged and died of that first. I don't know. But I think it looks like he didn't strangle himself or break his neck and couldn't breathe. It looks almost like he was placed there after being drugged into oblivion.
Interesting.
That's what I think anyway. Again, possible doesn't mean it's probable. Where are we? His respiratory system's excellent. We already know what's wrong with the heart. Liver, gallbladder, pancreas, everything looks decent. Even for somebody who did drugs for a long time, like, it looks not so bad. He had bile in his gallbladder, which is normal when you're digesting, and he does have undigested food or partially digested food. The pancreas looks good. The hemic and lymphatic systems look not so bad. Where'd you go? Bring that back. Put that back.
You can't see it?
No, it went away.
What?
Put it back.
Oh my God, my internet dropped again.
Mine keeps doing that too, but I have the notes in front of me. I can just keep going. The genitourinary, which talks about the genitals and obviously sexual reproduction, things like your bladder. The bladder had 30 cc's of clear yellow urine, but I think it was 30 or 300. Shit, now I gotta see that. And again, the analysis of that's weird because there's piss in the toilet, but not from a guy. And there's no sign he was trying to go to the bathroom otherwise because there would be shit in the toilet. We talked about the epithelial surfaces of the bladder showing trabeculation, which is how those thickening walls cause it harder to get the urine out. The endocrine system on page 20, the way it's described with harmless nodules and things like that, I don't understand it, so I can't comment. Digestive system, they don't ever talk about his last meal, but he had 200 cc's of partially digested food of a light-colored meat and a fruit or vegetable substance, and there was not a single break in his entire fucking body. Again, what? They did a good job taking their samples, but you're supposed to take blood samples from 5 parts of the body, and they only did the femur. They took stomach contents, liver and brain tissue, urine and vitreous eye fluid, which I told you is brilliant. Well, not brilliant, but it's really good to do, and most people don't. Maybe it was a money thing, I don't know. Full body radiographs. Photographs were taken externally and during the autopsy by the official named Ken Advincula. Yeah, that's like a Dracula name. Belt and clothing were given to Officer Advincula for evidentiary storage. Then we get into microscopic exam, which again is hard to understand, but basically, like stuff like in the spleen, it has moderate congestion. I don't know what the hell that means, but I feel like you shouldn't have that in your spleen. Adrenal glands have medullary congestion, which is the part of the adrenal gland where the hormones are produced that are not essential to living. So it's not really that bad if they're congested, I don't think. Kidneys have slight cortical and medullary congestion, something I can't spell or comprehend, but my wife, who's a medic, also said that it's a possible sign of impending kidney failure down the road. Pancreas says moderate autolysis, which is when your lysosomes from your cells go out and destroy other cells for like fun, almost like an autoimmune, but not. Okay, then it moves down to page 22, where they specifically talk about the brain, which again, this is wicked tough. There's so many words if you type in the phrase to look it up, because I don't understand. I know the words, what they mean, but putting them together is like, what? And when you look at it, how they join, there's not much that helps you understand it. So that's where my limits are obviously hit. Let me see. They say something about Parkinson's and LBD, and they keep going back and forth, and they don't say they're there in conjunction, which I think could happen. It might even happen a lot, but it seems like she says he got Parkinson's diagnosis, doesn't say anything about LBD. And then other people say he had LBD, so they need to get their fucking story straight. Page 26, his clinical history says he had signs of Parkinson's issues, like a tremble in his left arm and slower abilities using his left arm. He was diagnosed in November of 2013, allegedly with Parkinson's. He was given Pramipexole in May of 2014 that year, and added on the levodopa to take together to help control the symptoms until he died. It says history of compulsive behavior. They don't ever say why or how or what the proof is.
That could be anything.
I know, and that's the tough part. And we talk about the brain migra and the color of it. I don't completely know how to explain that, so that's something we need a doctor or somebody else to talk about.
Wait, he was
But
diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2013?
he was given the prescription for the Parkinson's control medication, it said, and from the records it said that he'd been on that medication since that time, and they added the Levodopa that May. So I'm guessing if they're giving him Parkinson's meds, and maybe that's just a guess, and I should have said that more clear, but let's assume, or not assume, but let's take a second and go, why would you give somebody Parkinson's meds without a diagnosis of something even remotely like that?
Yeah, I mean, those meds are going to make people go crazy. If there's paranoia,
we don't know.
I mean, there's, yeah.
What makes you say that for sure? Let me look that med up. Well, what do you makes you think that it's going to make them go crazy?
Because if you're mixing pills, first of all, you should never mix one pill, and there goes my internet. This is so weird. You should not mix one pill with one beer. You know, it can really cause problems.
Yeah.
Depending on the pill, depending on the beer, sure. But, I mean, if you look at all of the medications that he's taken, this is not good. This is not normal. And this is
the doctors will make him think it's okay. But the doctors tell you it's okay. It's like that old,
I understand that.
Yeah, part of my degree was doing the study about the doctors telling people to press the button to electrocute people. Do you remember that experiment? I can't remember the name of it, but
no, tell me about that.
Oh, they put people in 2 different rooms, and they tell somebody that they're testing. This is the person they're looking at. They say, this person here's a doctor, and what you're going to do is you're going to press buttons after asking these people questions, and the buttons are going to give them an increasing shock as you go. It's kind of like Ghostbusters, where they make fun of it. But it's a real thing that they did, and what they did was each time the person got a question wrong, they increased on buttons that went left to right how hard they shocked them. And what happened was a lot of these people, the first time they did it, I think it was like only one person said no. Everybody else did it all the way till they weren't screaming or speaking anymore. And the other person on the other side wasn't actually being affected. They were an actor. And they'd do things like scream out the worse it got, or they'd cry, and then they'd stop talking altogether like they were shocked to death. And the other person would be told by the doctor, keep pressing buttons. And they would do it because the doctor told them to. So that's something they did a study in human behavior where they said, you know, the whole idea was, can doctors give off such an influence to others that they'll listen even though they're really harming, possibly killing another person? The first round they did, it was like, oh, God, I will send you the video. Well, the first one they did, I think, was everybody but one. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. The person doesn't get hurt. There's nobody getting hurt. You get that part, right? There's no one hurt.
Okay.
It's an actor in the other room. And they're starting with like a small buzz or whatever, they'll be like, ow. Then the next time they buzz them, they'll pretend they're getting buzzed and they'll be like, ow. And then it gets worse as you go until it's silent, like they're dead. And a lot of people stop and they're like, I don't want to press the next button. I don't want to do this. And the doctor says, I'm telling you to do it. So they listen and they press the button. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's Hollywood crazy. Hollywood crazy, which is Hollywood normal, I guess.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is doctors, if they tell you to do something, you're going to do it because you've been raised your whole life to listen to doctors. Yeah. So he's going to take them, even though he probably, like you said, if it's possible, and it is, it's actually even probable, I would think, that these drugs would interact in such a way, even with a doctor and a pharmacist watching, that there would be issues. You're right. But if a doctor says take them, you're going to take them.
Yeah, and one of the big reasons is from my view and from my personal family experiences with these doctors who give my family uppers and down, but they give them one upper to make them feel better, then they give them a downer to combat the other one, blah, blah, blah. And we finally get to the point where it's like, where can we get to the point where the doctor is actually liable? And you get there and you see they are not. They are absolutely
if you live that long. If you live that long.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's true. And if you notice, because sometimes you're so drugged up that you don't know. And it's true. Yeah, and other people say, well, I'm not going to question it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, they're not going to take them seriously because they're all on drugs, not realizing, well, it's like it's like a druggie dealing with their drug dealer.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody has to go after the dealer, not the person who's on drugs. And we have to get to the point where we stop blaming all of these people that are taking this stuff, and start blaming the ones who are giving it to them.
Absolutely. Like Michael Jackson and Dr. Murray.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Right there. That's exactly it. Now that to me was a little more stranger. That there was a little more to that, but I think he was a person, and you can go back, for all of these people, Beatles, all of these famous people, they were all medicated. They were all given all of these pills so that people could control them. You know, it was
and so they could keep
not
going for the
really to
masses.
help them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they could keep going for the masses. And here's what kills me is things, and I hate to say kills, but the truth is you're totally right. And this is totally relevant to what we're talking about, because when you think about it, like these doctors, I mean, I don't know how many times I read during the Michael Jackson, Conrad Murray, to use that as an example. Again, I know they're not the same, but I read so many times that he would say to him, you know, give me that dose, I want that dose. Well, when you're a doctor, you have a fucking license that you better give up if you're continuing to drug someone out there. They're begging if they're not a doctor. And if you're listening to someone just because they'll give you money or they'll pay you, you're still a shitty doctor and a shitty person. Like, that's got to be a point where they go, okay, Dr. Murray was at fault. But same thing with all these doctors with this medication. Now, here's something wicked interesting. I looked up the drug he was prescribed, and I was wrong to make any assumption, and I should punch myself for this. But it was for restless leg syndrome. I don't know how to feel about that being a thing anyway. It's kind of like oppositional defiance in children. I don't believe in it myself. I think it's asshole disease. But restless leg, I could be wrong about. I mean, it's a thing, but they medicate it? Who fucking knew, right? Did you know that?
No.
The drug that he took, the one that looks like it was prescribed same time he got the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
it says that Pramipexole is a dopamine agonist that works by helping restore the balance of certain natural substances called dopamine in the brain. Like, that's no longer training your brain to make dopamine itself. That's making it do it fake in a fake way that causes your body to become reliant on that pill.
Mm.
You know? And it's the medications to treat Parkinson's. If it's mixed with other meds, which we know it was, it says it decreases shakiness, tremor, stiffness, slowed movement. So for all we know, it could have been prescribed for that reason, but majorly it's for restless leg, it says.
Wow.
So you're right. It looks like they're really medicating. I mean, even if he's uncomfortable, like that seems like a lot of pills. I think that's a good point. Excellent point, actually. Good job. Later, I looked up, and I wanted to tell you this. The other stuff they tested for, I have a list of. Things like cannabinoid, which, whatever, I told you, if it doesn't reach a certain amount, it won't come up. It says... Hold on, I'm there. Then I start going by page numbers because all of a sudden I became organized.
So please, yeah, give me page numbers if you can.
No, I will. Okay. Oh, page 33. It says carbidopa was previously stated as not reported, which we said in the beginning. So it's saying that in this specific issue, there's no presence of a specimen of this type being found because there's an issue with the matrix that makes this drug or this thing up. And the sample could not show what was actually in there because of the specimen itself having an issue with its own matrix. That sounds to me like a dangerous drug. If I can hide from testing, I feel like maybe don't take it. But he couldn't know. Sorry. Okay. So I've made notes when we get past it because I got past all this and it's basically just repeating the same shit and talking about what's sent off to talks. I did make notes. It did say things about financial issues in the case studies by idiots I read, but I looked into it and I found out that he paid $30 million out to both of his ex-wives, and he had 4 movies on his, but he had 40 movies on his plate at the time of his death, because he didn't like to do movies because they brought out his inner demon, but he thought if he did these 4 movies and then stopped, that he'd be able to, continue his medication and live his life out without any more interruptions as far as Hollywood goes. But then we get really into the interesting shit about the battle. Yeah. The battle over his estate.
Let me stop you there. Don't make sure we come back to that battle. Yeah. But it sounds like if there's really evidence that he was planning on doing 4 more movies and then quitting the whole business.
That's not stated explicitly. It's not stated explicitly. Okay. It says that he was doing those last 4 movies. And that he hated them because they brought out his inner demons. He was having trouble memorizing his lines, and he didn't like doing them anyway. And it said that the money that he paid out, he still had plenty of money to live off, and he was still very comfortable. But he did these last 4 movies, I think, they said he put all of them on his plate at once just to kind of wrap it up, they said is how they stated it. And I thought wrap it up would mean, like, just to kind of end that chapter, maybe. You go back to stand-up. I mean, maybe that was my assumption. I apologize if I didn't put that out there.
Oh, no, that's good. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
I think that's a very key point. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
I should have said that right. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. That's good. I think it's, you're just saying what you know, and so it's fine.
I'm sorry though. You made a good point, and I'm sorry that if I misled you. I did in my statement I wrote up for you. I'll send it to you. I write all my resources down for you. So I've got this for you if you're interested, or do you want me to wait?
Mm-hmm.
Want me to wait?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on. Let me.
Yep.
Of course, it dropped again. Let me just get back on.
It's funny. My internet's staying perfect, and it never stays upright. And yours is interrupting, which it doesn't do.
No,
Weird.
it's all over the place right now.
Yeah, but mine is steady, and it never is, which is weird.
Oh, good. Then that means you gotta.
I'm stealing your internet.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I'm stealing your internet, so be afraid.
Be very afraid.
Yeah, right. When you're ready, let me know.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So his first wife was named Valerie Velarde, and they had a son named Zach, and were married 10 years. Then he ended up cheating on her, which is why they broke up, with the nanny of the son. Her name was Marcia Garces. I don't know how to explain it. They had a daughter named Zelda and a son named Cody, and they were married 28 years. He ended that relationship because he started drinking again. And she said there was trust gone, and he had to go to rehab, and she couldn't stay with him. He met Susan Snyder, who became Susan Williams, in rehab, and they got married in 2011. It says during filming for Night at the Museum, he had an anxiety attack so severe they placed him on antipsychotics, which goes back to what you said about all the fucking problems, He said he had dinner with Billy Crystal, and he looked frail because Billy had not seen him for about 4 months, and said he was unusually quiet and started sobbing, crying after dinner, saying he was happy to see him and he loved him so much. And Billy thought it was really weird that he was this bold, brave dude who suddenly was reduced to this scared, shitless guy. And that's a statement from Billy Crystal again. Yeah, I know. Yep, for sure. I'm totally with you. The Parkinson's was diagnosed on May 28th of 2014. May of that year. The drugs were assured to work by the doctor in charge that gave them to him, and said he'd have another good 10 years ahead of him. And therefore, he didn't tell many people. He just told his inner circle and his very close family. It said when he went through a phase before he died of apologizing to his kids for treating them poorly when he was in addiction. Dana Carvey, I guess he was told that he stole parts of Dana's stand-up, and Dana said that he never did that. It was like a rumor. And he apologized to Dana Carvey over and over, to the point where Dana was like, "It's fine, you never did anything wrong." Yeah, I know. I know, drugs. He checked himself into Dan Anderson Renewal Center and got a private treatment with yoga and 12 steps, etc. Then it says they performed in July of 2014, and he died that August. A fellow comedian on the USO tour said that he had a 1,000-yard stare, and every time he talked to him, it was like he wasn't even there, and he said it was very upsetting to him. And Rebecca Spencer's reported as being 20 and then 57. She really is 57, I think, or older, whatever the older age is. Let me see. Let's see. We've got 57-year-old Rebecca Irwin Spencer found him dead. She called 911 at 11:55. EMS got there in 5 minutes, which again is a really good response time, and he was pronounced at 12:02 by the EMS, which is legal. Let me see. Originally her name was not given, and it was redacted from the report, but she lived in San Francisco, moved there when he was living there, and then when he moved to Tiburon, California, she bought a home 5 minutes away and picked up and moved her husband, and they all went there. I just think that's a little strange. I mean, they were good friends, but I don't follow my friend, and my best friend lives in Maine, and that's 4 hours away. I don't move there. I thought, here's a question for you. Wouldn't you call cops to break in and do a wellness check rather than pick a lock and see if somebody's in there? I just feel like, why would you check if he's not answering and the wife, is there or isn't there? If she's not going to pick the lock, I would say I'd rather call police than do it myself. But
that is a really good question that I never really thought about.
Why wouldn't the wife do it? And if she's there and doesn't do it, then I would say, I'm not doing it. I'm not picking the lock on his property. This is my friend. He's a millionaire movie star. I'm not damaging shit. And if he's not responding to and I'm concerned, I'm calling 911 right away. That's me. But I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think maybe, they're just like, well, let's check on him first. Let's make sure, because obviously, picture if you did call it,
Right.
the news media would be all over that, and they'd be like, oh, something happened with Robin Williams, blah, blah, blah. They
Right.
called and, did a
Good point.
welfare check. It would
Good
be
point.
it'd be a big scandal. And it would definitely hurt his Hollywood
Reputation.
career, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. Probably wouldn't
Reputation.
hurt
But
him
then
too
here's
much.
my question: is if
Yeah.
she cared enough to pick the lock, why did she fucking pass a note under the door like, "Hey, you okay?" Like, I don't know about
So,
you, but that would be like me having a tin can on a string calling you to be like, "You good?" Like, I don't understand that. Why would
yeah,
you
and
slip a note?
didn't they call him? So did they try calling him?
They knocked, I guess, and he didn't respond to knocks. But again, it's only noontime. And if he hadn't had
But
sleep
why
in a
not
while and
call
was
him?
getting sleep, why not call? Exactly. And if they tried calling and it's because the phone didn't work that he didn't get it, I mean, I don't know. But in a
Phone's
charging
dead.
case and everything else, why didn't it ring? Like, that's weird, right?
Yeah, I'd be curious. Does it say if the phone was dead, or was it
Yeah,
still active?
it
Was
was
it able
dead.
to turn on? Okay, the
It
phone
was
was
dead. They
dead.
had to
Okay.
plug it in to turn it on. Yeah, it
Okay.
says
All right.
that, yeah.
All right. So even if they
Um,
did try calling, it wouldn't matter. Wouldn't work.
But you would think that they would have said that explicitly first, that they tried call. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. Why didn't they call? Or, like I said, why didn't they just think, okay, 12 p.m., people sleep late if they haven't had sleep in a bit. I don't sleep late, but if I don't get sleep, I'll sleep really late. And my wife knows, like, to let me sleep. If I'm not up by 3 p.m., she's going to be like, the fuck is going on? And shake me. But, like, if I'm up, around noontime or 1 o'clock and I'm not up by then she's going to be like, what's going on? But I also don't lock myself in a room. And I wasn't aware he locked himself in the room either. Why would he need to lock it?
Why would you lock yourself in a room, first of all? And was that common for him to
Right,
lock himself in that room? This isn't his room.
right, right. And the bunk beds were both made up, and the one he slept in was ruffled like he'd slept in it. Like I said, there was piss in the toilet. It looked like somebody had been used it. There's an iPad propped up next to his bed. And there was ginger ale in the bathroom on the ledge of the sink, which had no alcohol in it. Like, he'd just been hanging out, chilling. And all of a sudden he ends up dead. And again, like, why was it locked? Did somebody unlock it and lock it? And is it normal for him to do it? That's a great question. Why would he feel the need to lock himself in a room in his own home?
Yeah.
The windows that faced the main street were in that room, I guess, and they were also really well shaded and protected. So we didn't have to worry about that unless he's afraid of his wife coming in and, like, God knows what. Then if you're not afraid of her, why are you locking it? That's my personal wonder. If he's a sleepwalker too, that'd be different, but they don't mention that.
And there's nothing in there that shows why he. There's no explanation. I mean, did the officers even ask? Well, was this normal for him to lock his?
Again, we're going on a report that came out in November, and we're going on a report that likely had other drafts to it before the final came out. We're also looking at somebody, if they did do it later because of the talks and everything else, there's a good chance that he did it by memory, which memory clouds a lot of important things like that. This detective seems like he did a very good job, so I'd be surprised if he didn't. I mean, honestly, there's no explanation I can find. Again, if he was a sleepwalker, it would be locked from the outside. Like, that's what I would think. I'm a sleepwalker, and if if I'm not watched, I sleep on the inside of the bed on purpose. If I'm not, I can get up and sleepwalk, but they're not going to lock me in from the inside, unless they don't care. Let me see. Hang on a sec. I gotta bring my word up because this is other things. Okay, the other thing you should know is that the kids his children don't seem to like her or her stepchildren the least bit. They were very accepting. I guess the first son was accepting of the second wife, and they've been accepting of many people in and out of their life. They're not usually the type to just turn off and be like, we don't like you, but they obviously did not like Susan. Yeah, it's clear, and I'll get to it. It says that she was credited with nursing him back to health after his heart issues and when they met in rehab. She's a graphic designer and painter. It said each of his 3 kids had a trust fund where they would get a third of it at age 21, half of it was left at age 25, and the rest at age 30, and it had nothing to do with how he died, if they got it or not. It said that the widow was battling them for a $100 million estate in addition to the home they shared, which was $100 million as well. He had a collection of
Who's the widow?
Susan Schneider-Williams, who I think is, again, like, borderline Satan. She's weird. Yeah, I don't like her. Yeah, he had an extensive fossil, bicycle, and photo collection, which both sides fought and said that belongs to us. I mean, she signed a prenup. There was no question. But they started coming in the house because they were afraid she'd take things and sell them. Their kids and their lawyers were coming in the house to take certain items and make sure that they were specifically listed in the writing of the will, saying, who does this go to? Is this under the will laws or is it not? They were looking at pieces, and she claims that she got so scared, even though they gave her 3 days notice before they came to take anything, she gets scared of them just showing up with 3 days notice. Like, what? And she started acting like she was a victim. Like, poor me, I got 3 days notice and can't remember the schedule that they're coming. Like, what? And why make this the issue? Like, that's very shallow. I don't care what anyone says. I would never, nothing, in my opinion, nothing makes up for this. Like, my grandma didn't have much, but when she died, everybody's like, oh, I want this. I want, had an opal they wanted and all that, her wedding ring. I was like, I just want her rosary, man. Like, her rosary. That's that wasn't expensive. It was just something from her to me. I just, personally, I know everybody's not like me, but I don't understand why this became the focus. She said she wanted a bicycle they bought in their honeymoon and all of their wedding gifts, which they hadn't even opened yet. And 3 years later, like, what? Some of them, I guess, were opened, but she wanted to keep them all, and the kids were like, whatever, fine. The house was $100 million, and she started to complain that she couldn't keep up the lifestyle he started in this home, and so she needed money, and she needed to get more assets from them because she couldn't keep the home. So the family specifically in the writing saw that they said, as long as his wife was taken care of, everything else went to them. So they gave her a share of the $100 million home and said, you can buy a very nice house for this and not pay a single day of rent. That's what you get. Plus the wedding gifts he received, plus the tuxedo he got married in and their ring. That's, like, fair considering there was a prenup. Like, it says she wanted them all to put everything into a trust, that all the items of the estate would be rolled into a giant for all beneficiaries, and she would have a separate Susan's trust with its own provisions. What the fuck? Like,
what's the benefit? Yeah, what's the benefit of that? They don't have to pay taxes or something, or what?
No, it's what she wanted. She wanted a trust of her own, and she was saying that
why?
she was because she had nothing. She had a prenup she signed. She's getting nothing. I mean, it was so bad. They were fighting over pictures they took with him at the time they were married because the framed photos in the house he had of him and his kids, she was taking. Like, that's weird.
Why? Yeah, that is weird. That is.
Yes, pictures of them not with her in them, pictures of them with their father. He said
she was also out there. What? She was also out there right after he died, and she's out there talking about suicide and drug. And it's just like, what? It wasn't
depression that killed him. She said over and over. It wasn't depression. It was Lewy body. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, she was weird. She's like laughing. I mean, it's okay to laugh after you have a loss, but laugh as hard as you were about what you were laughing about. I mean, watch the videos from Good Morning America. It's weird. Very weird.
Do you have any idea what she's doing now?
Oh, no, I haven't, like, brushed her hair and watched American Idol lately, Greg.
Why not?
But I don't. That bitch just got off the phone with me, and what a whore. Like, no.
Yes, you should know all this.
I know, right? I would gladly look into it, but honestly, I'm just afraid I'd find out and, like, want to, like, call her, because I can do that. I can find out things like that. I'm afraid I want to call her and be like, why did you take him from us? And then it would just get nasty. It sounds terrible, but I can't. Dead Poets Society is my favorite movie ever, and I can't watch it to this day. I can't watch Aladdin or any of it. None of it.
Oh,
what?
Aladdin, yeah, that's another great one.
What, says bye to Aladdin as a genie? No thanks. Cry my eyes out, and I don't cry. I'm good. What was I going to say? And Disney is where I was when he passed, and they put a giant genie up in the middle of downtown Disney to watch over everybody, and they were giving Disney little genie statues out, which was cool. Anyway, so the trust they wanted to roll into would give the kids just the clothing, jewelry, and personal photos taken prior to their marriage, so she was still going to keep ones after. All of his awards and memorabilia from his second home in Napa, including the home itself. And they were obviously like, no, you're creating some sort of, like, blurred line when there's not a blurred line. You don't get any of this. We're not doing this. We told you we'd take care of you, and we did. We gave you a portion of the estate and let you go on your way. And they argued to the death, and then finally finished up with his tuxedo, a ring, some of the gifts from their wedding, and pictures of her and him together, obviously. And I think that's it. I think that's all she got, which is good. Why you would want a tux, I don't know. Her lawyer made a statement saying that because of all they were inheriting, this, what she was asking for was like a bucket of water from a giant lake. I mean, to me, I think that's like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's their father, so shut up. You know?
She's, yeah, I mean, she's fighting or whatever. They're combating with kids who just lost their father.
Yep.
And she's taking all this stuff. No, that's weird.
They're respectfully
That's
telling
not
her
cool.
3 days in advance, we're coming over to grab this, this, and this. Or, you know, houses she wasn't even at, they were still sending things saying, we're going to go to the Napa house this day, 3 days from now, to collect X, Y, and Z. That's where he kept his awards, I guess. Have everything, you know, like made into a file so they knew what was what and what, you know, they were looking to actually give her something. They were trying to be, like, decent, but she made it into such a battle, they were like, well, screw you. And I don't blame them. I think when you lose a parent like that, you probably try to hold on to everything. But at the same time, it's what's entitled to them. I mean, you don't see his ex-wives going, well, I got $30 million, but we want this. It's like, no. You married him for 3 years, and that was their big argument, was that they hadn't been together very long, and they never liked her. They were like, we don't trust her, and we still gave her, like, an inch. They never said it outright, but they still gave her, like, an inch, and she tried to take a mile.
Was there anything given to the ex-wife, to the other ex-wife?
Not to my knowledge, no. But again, why would they need it? The kids are grown. They're in their 30s and late 20s, and they had their own lives, and the ex-wife got all the stuff they needed to through the years. They actually, I think they had good relationships for the most part, as far as I remember, but obviously I wasn't there.
So he wasn't making any payments to the ex-wife up until
not that I know of.
Like that?
Not that I know of, no. Alimony, I think, is only 10 years after the divorce, right? And I think that that child support obviously ends after they're out of college at the latest. So as far as I know, I mean, I think like age 26 is like as high as it goes or something.
Even in California, because in every other state, I would say, okay, yeah, fine. But in California, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on.
Good point, because I'm basing a lot of this on my own parents' divorce, which was Massachusetts, so it's not going to be the same. You're right. But I can say that I'm pretty sure that there's a law that says that after a certain age, they don't continue to get alimony, and after the kids are out of the house, why would they still get payments? The kids are grown, you know. And if they've got $30 million, and one of them, the second wife, was a producer on a lot of his large movies. I believe Mrs. Doubtfire and Patch Adams were mentioned. She had producer credits on all of those movies, so she made money from that as well. I don't think they were greedy. I think the first woman was obviously scorned, and I don't blame her. And I think the second, and they had a kid, and the second woman, I think, was just getting what she needed for the children. So I don't think there's anything contentious, but this woman comes along for 3 years, meets them in rehab. God knows what her story is. It doesn't seem like the kids like or trust her or spend time there. And she had her 2 stepsons living in the house, but they weren't home that night, and they were just God knows where. I mean, with the dad, who knows? Their ages aren't mentioned. I can't find their names. Either way, I mean, just the neck problem alone, you're right, I think is a smoking gun. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that, and I was going to continue to look into it. My wife works with a certain group of doctors where she can ask them whatever she wants anytime to open access. And she actually went to work tonight, and she was going to pick the brains of a few doctors and surgeons in there, because I was like, how the hell could he die if this wasn't the case? Now, that said, it's hard for my wife to talk about. She just lost a friend by hanging. So it's hard for her to discuss, but she said she would do it through an unbiased source, so we could find out more.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's weird. I mean, how did he die? Right?
Yeah, I mean, because the way that I remember when I first heard about this, I watched the press conference, and they kind of made it seem like he was hanging. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, he was hanging and I remember they specifically said, if I remember correctly, he was hanging in a seated position, which I thought was very odd. Wait a minute. Okay, either he's hanging or he's seated, and then when you read this, he's like on the floor,
barely touching it. Yeah, on one side, barely touching it. Yeah, and one side totally resting on it. Yeah. And the weird thing is, like I said, when your intuition comes in and you want to live, which at the very end, almost I think it's like a known thing, and I don't want to say for sure, but I think everybody who commits suicide, if I remember correctly, everybody's like 100%. They get to a point where when it comes into your fight for survival, you just can stand up. So unless he couldn't, which makes me wonder the drug thing, that's why I think possibly he was drugged, because he couldn't just stand up for some reason. Maybe his body wasn't cooperating if he was diseased. I don't know. But, I mean, come on. I mean, I did a case one time of a girl who was 6 feet tall. She was like a model, and she hung herself from a pole in her closet that was like 5 feet 4 inches off the ground. And everybody was like, that's fine, that's suicide. And I was like, no, it's not. That's not. She could have stood right up, and there was nothing under her disturbed. There were shoes laid out. There's no mess under her. Like, that's weird. And it looks like here it's the same idea, where why didn't he just stand up unless, of course, he was drugged? And what's that stuff on his side? Like the stuff that's indented? Why wouldn't they talk about that? It's like they mentioned something so weird, and they're like, okay, anyway. Like, no. They don't bank on people reading these either because they think people are too upset to read it or they'll be traumatized by it. Most people don't want to look at these things. I get. But when we don't, that's why they can take over us so easily and try to do things like pull 9/11 over on us, which I stand by to this day. If people don't care to look or don't want to look at the ugly, then they'll always be taken for fools. You know?
That's right.
I mean, that's me anyway. But thank you I appreciate very much that we got a chance to do this. I really do. If you ever want to talk about any of the other ones I've worked on, I've had more than a couple cases. The one I just mentioned about the girl is out in Castle Rock, Colorado. Her name's Holly Moore. I actually published a story on her that got pretty well known. A lot of these I've looked into because to me, there's things that should be the hallmark of a suicide, hallmark of murders. A lot of things do vary, but there's some things like this, like the neck thing, that don't make any fucking sense. Yeah, and did we ever get a chance to talk about, or did you ever mention to me anything about any other theories that you mentioned before about 9/11? Connecting? Did you want to go?
Yeah, no, because I haven't found anything, any
fair.
proof or anything
fair.
like that.
Fair.
But I will say that everybody should go and watch Robin Williams stand up. I believe it was oh man, I always forget the name. I believe it was Methods of Mass Destruction or Words of Mass Destruction. Let me look.
I think it was that one, but I couldn't find it when I looked. I'll look again.
You have to watch that. Everybody has to watch this. Let me find this.
Let's see if we can find it together to post it.
Yeah. It's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube.
I thought that's where it looked.
I sent you a link that was from Vimeo, which wasn't as good, but let me.
No, I like that stand-up one. I knew that one. That's
that one. Everybody needs to watch. Weapons of Self-Destruction.
Destruction. That's the one.
Now you got to see this, and I found there's at least 2 or 3 on YouTube, so watch it before they take it down. But
good call.
This is a great stand-up. This looks like this happened in 2010.
Ooh.
Possibly. Wow, I didn't know it was that old. But he talks a lot about our president at the
politics,
time.
Right?
Talks a lot about all of the wars. Talks about how after 9/11 happened, for some reason, instead of going after Osama bin Laden, the government goes after Saddam Hussein.
That's because he did the first George Bush wrong, and that's what the whole thing was about.
Yeah.
He went right after him on purpose. Like he did that to avenge his father to a degree, but I don't think Bush had that much power. I think the cabinet and the people that surround the president use them as puppets, or they don't. I think the problem I have with whoa, Sam, don't say Osama, with Barack Obama, is that he was too smart to be somebody's puppet. And I think he was so smart, he was able to manipulate a lot of people into stuff. That's my personal opinion. But you're right, they don't look for him. And then the other thing people miss is they never look on his own house, at his own place of living for Osama bin Laden. They never knock on the door and say hey buddy, you in there? They never do that till he dies. And he's making breakfast and hanging out with his wives, and they're like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, you want scrambled eggs? And they're like, no, we're gonna kill you. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
They never checked his house. Come on.
No, and they had to have known where he was, if he was there, if he really died where they said it.
He was on their property, owned by the United States. And that's the thing. I know we can do this another time if you want, but you make a good point. They go right after Saddam. They don't find Osama bin Laden for years, and they're like, where are they searching and who's doing it? Because whoever it is did not knock on the door, which really pisses me off. And furthermore, there's too many things wrong with it in general that it looks to me like it was almost definitely something that we made worse to use to go into war. And I think it was coming anyway, but I think we worsened it on purpose. And regardless, like you said, things like the stand-up and the comments different celebrities have made, you got to be careful because so many celebrities and so many people involved. Yeah, yeah, no joke.
I mean, we're talking about Robin Williams. Anything he's saying, if he's going to start talking about truth, it's powerful, and that's what he was doing around this time.
I agree. I didn't know that, though. I never noticed, to be honest. I hadn't seen a lot of his work on politics. At that point in time, I think I watched 9/11 happen from my dorm room, but I also remember thinking, obviously, right away, something's wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. And then my family wouldn't let me discuss it because we come from Boston, and you don't even talk about the Kennedys or anything else, which you and I have talked about. We'll just leave it at that. There's certain things you don't talk about. Yeah, you don't talk about Kennedy's assassination. You don't ask questions. You leave it. And my dad was a pilot. Why don't you? Because my dad flew for a long time. And then on top of it, the Kennedys and the grassy knoll, you don't question it. You assume the government, in their generation, they were brought up to believe their government was this great thing. I mean, he went to Washington, D.C. for his first trip, and he said, I felt so much pride, and I loved it. I went for my first trip, and I was so pissed when I came back. I was so angry. I was like, why would you tell me to go there when they spit on me for being gay, on top of everything else, because we weren't, like, walking down the street holding hands or, like, wearing pride, anything. I'm just not that girl. But they spit on us for walking down the street together. And we had a lot of issues with, like, I gave Lincoln the middle finger because people were so busy praising him, they forgot he owned slaves and impregnated them. Emancipation Proclamation, my ass. Sorry. Not sorry. I gave him the middle finger and I got kicked out. Like, I just was disgusted with it. But in his generation, that's incredibly disrespectful. And it's like, okay, well, you think it's a great government. It doesn't mean you're right, though. But that's how he explained it, was his generation was different. And I get that. But when I saw 9/11 happen, and then over the years came by and I started really hearing about things, and then I saw Loose Change, and I saw a few other movies, I went, let me do my own research, and read the whole thing cover to cover from the local library, which anyone can get the report from 9/11 at their local library. It's in every library free around the world, the nation rather. I read the whole thing cover to cover 4 times, and I was like, this does not make any sense. So, I mean, it's powerful shit when you start raising alarms about that, especially if you're around movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the other people who've spoken about it.
Yeah, I really think that put a big target. Some of the stuff that he was saying put a big target on him, and I do think he was targeted from that point.
Absolutely.
And there were certain Hollywood powers that he got blacklisted, completely blacklisted, and somehow he was still able to make it go. And that guy could have made movies until he passed. You know, there's no doubt. He was. So, you know, any of that stuff where, his film career was over, he was depressed because he couldn't get the big projects, any of that stuff, I'm like, I'm not buying that.
With him, no way. That's not true. He could pick whatever he wanted. It's like Bill Murray, you have to call him and leave him a 30-second voicemail to pitch a movie. He has a line for it. And he picks and chooses what he wants. You call that line, and that's it. Robin Williams is approached for things all the time, but he can pick and choose what the fuck he wants, money or no money or whatever. He was not going to be destitute. He was depressed, but he was more worried about his lines, not being able to recall his lines that were his problem, and he didn't like it because he thought films made him remember the times where he was addicted. And so that was his thing, and I kind of respect that. I mean, when you go through 12 steps, they teach you to avoid your old friends. They teach you to get rid of things that cause triggers, right? So he's trying to do the right thing. And at the same time, like you said, there were so many people. I mean, that guy his name, I gotta find his name, but he's the guy who talks from Building 7 right away that said there was explosions in Building 7 before it came down, and we were waiting for the FBI to come and Giuliani to come and start their incident command, and they never so. That guy got killed off within, basically, I think, under 5 years. They got rid of him. There's lots of people they've gotten rid of ever since. I mean, it's not something that's hid. They don't act like they need to hide it. People, if they look, they'll see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, tell me, what is your favorite, as we're kind of winding down here, and I definitely want to do a second part on this because there's a lot of more of the details and getting into exactly what happened on that day. I would like our next show to kind of focus just on that. But tell me, what is your favorite? Tell me both. I want to know your favorite and your least favorite Robin Williams movie.
Oh, good question. Okay, so I'm not a crier, which I say over and over again. I'm just not. It doesn't mean I don't feel. I'm empathic to the point where I feel everything, but I don't cry often. Especially at movies. I never understood it. The first time I watched Dead Poets Society, I watched it in my English class in 11th grade. Best teacher ever, Mr. Bartos, best man ever. I remember him sitting with me watching the movie, and I started to cry, and I got really embarrassed. And I went through a lot of loss as a kid, so I struggled with my feelings a lot. And he sat there and he had a box of tissues ready to go. And I said, I don't cry. And he said, okay. So Dead Poets Society affected me like no other movies ever affected me. And so I would say my favorite movie of all time by him would be that easily. My least favorite, and by the way, you have to tell me the same thing. My least favorite, I feel like I haven't seen anything I've really disliked. If I thought about it, I could probably let me think. That's a tough one because I love him so much. I feel like I can support anything he does. I never watched Death to Smoochie, so I can't even say I don't like it because I don't watch it. There's one I'm thinking of that Mork and Mindy was cute. Do TV stuff count or no?
No, not TV, just movies. And, okay, go ahead.
How about you give me your favorite while I think of my least favorite, and I'm going to listen to you.
Yeah, I would also want to think of what is your and I'm pulling it up. I'm going to pull up all of his movies here because this is an amazing list
I do the
here.
same thing.
But,
I know. I can answer this. Sorry, I can answer it. Sorry, it took me a second to pull up. Okay, my bad. Of all the ones I've seen, my least favorite is, and this is going to be so unpopular with everyone else, but The Birdcage, because I'm so anti-being gay, even though I'm a giant lesbian, that I never understood wanting to watch more gay men parade on TV because I see them around me at clubs and stuff all the time. So at the time, I remember being like, I don't get it, but I can appreciate it for being so good now that I'm an adult. Popeye sucked. I'll be honest, I like Popeye.
How dare you?
How dare I what?
You didn't
That's
like
not
Popeye?
his best work. Dude, Ferngully's like his best animated work, hands down, other than Aladdin. Come on.
Yeah.
What's your favorite, least favorite? You tell me.
Ah, man. Okay. My favorite is definitely What Dreams May Come, hands down.
Yeah.
Greatest movie ever.
That
movie, I cannot watch that movie and not cry every time that I watch that movie.
What's the
premise? It's a very sad movie. Ooh, this is a very deep movie. This is probably his deepest movie. This is about, first his kids die.
Ooh.
Then he dies. Then his wife commits suicide, and he's in heaven or somewhere, and he goes down into hell to get his wife back, to take her from hell. It is one of the greatest films. If you haven't seen
Very
this movie,
Orpheus and Eurydice, Greek tragedy, very interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy. But it was one of the deepest movies that I've ever seen, and his character is just so. To me it resonated so much. Like that's what I would try to do too. Even though it's a great premise. I probably just spoiled the whole thing, but basically, I won't spoil the ending or anything like that, but that is the whole premise is he goes to get his wife out of hell. He literally goes to take her out of hell. It's just an amazing. I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
It's just Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in it too, who I actually really love.
He's great.
Ooh,
He's great in that.
Like, yes. Yes, he is. That was really good. I'll watch that.
To watch.
Sure.
Yeah,
Have you seen Jack, by the way, with him in it? Have you seen Jack?
What is that?
That's funny. That's a good one. You
is that the toy where he and his sister are like they own a toy company? No,
that's the one where he's a regularly functioning 10-year-old or whatever, but he's 40 on the outside. So he comes early via he's pregnant for a minute, and he comes full term, and he goes through his life, and he's a freak. He's rejected by all his other friends, and then he finds his place with these friends in 4th grade who really help him feel like a normal kid, and it's really good. That one's funny as hell. You'd like that a lot. Yeah, but I'm gonna watch What Dreams May Come. What's your least favorite? Don't say Good Will Hunting. I'm from Boston, and I'll punch you. Don't even think about it.
That's it.
Oh, Happy Feet.
Something called Good Will Hunting, I believe.
I hate you. I'll fight you.
No, just kidding.
I'll fight you. Night Listener sucks, but he was good in it.
How about them apples, right? Yeah. How about them apples, I guess.
Are you still on Good Will Hunting, you bastard? Are you kidding? But he gets the last line. It says, "The fucker stole my line." That's amazing. And his bench is bronze, and it's in the park
Not
where
your
I grew
fault.
up. Yeah.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. You're right.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. It's a great movie. Everybody has to dismiss Ben Affleck because he's a suckfest. But like Matt
I like
and
Ben
him.
Affleck as Batman. I like him as Batman.
What? Are you joking?
No.
Are you joking right now?
No, I did. I really did.
No, you didn't say that because our friendship might be over. I'm sorry.
Too late for that. Too late.
Wow. The only, in my opinion, come on, the only Batman is Adam West. I mean, he's a fucking fruitcake, and I love it. But
yeah, okay,
Batman
he is the original. Sure.
Batman for Ben? I mean, come on. I can't. I just think he's a snide bastard. Like every time I've seen him in Boston, even when he's with his nicer half, Jennifer Garner, who's a sweetheart, he's just a snide asshole. Like he just doesn't really. He's not very, not warm fuzzy because he doesn't have to be, but he's just kind of a dick. I don't know how to explain it. He's a dick.
But that's what Batman is.
What?
But that's Batman, though.
Yes. No, Batman's just an idiot because there's all that money and doesn't do anything to fortify that fucking jail where everybody keeps escaping. 1. And 2, he's a fucking asshole because he doesn't care about jeopardizing the people in Gotham City. Like, move, dick. Go somewhere else.
There is a great movie called Hook. Now, you've seen Hook, right?
Rufio.
Yeah. Okay, so he was great in that. He was great in Good Morning Vietnam. Okay, I did not like 1 Hour Photo. I went and saw this movie. And now this shows his range. You know, he has a huge range of just comedy, drama, horror.
Ferngully?
He can do it all.
He's Batty in Ferngully, and Batty's like in there for 8 lines, and he rules the movie. And like Aladdin, I'm sorry, Aladdin's great, but the guy from friggin' Full House does not carry Aladdin. Robin Williams carries Aladdin, hands down.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Happy Feet I don't like just because I don't like musicals. They piss me off. So that's kind of but Jacob the Liar, you should see that. That's about the Holocaust. It's amazing. It's amazing. Oh,
Cadillac
it's so
Man.
Good. What?
Cadillac Man was really good.
Never seen it.
Never seen Cadillac Man?
No.
Well, it is an 1990.
I was an 83 baby. I could totally watch this.
Before your time.
Screw.
Bicentennial Man? Have you heard the theories about pedophilia and Bicentennial Man?
Bicentennial Man's like a robot or some shit. How do they get pedophilia in there? Tell me.
I don't know. I never saw the movie. I just
if you're going to bring it up, though, like, tell me what you're hearing. If you didn't see the movie, why bring it up?
I heard that, I don't know. He's like his character is like a pedophile or he protects the kid from a pedophile, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I didn't see that one, but I probably don't think he'd be involved with anything that makes pedophilia happen in a children's movie. Maybe I'm wrong.
It was very vague from what I don't know.
That is wicked vague, I guess. Yeah.
It's very vague. It's so vague that you don't even know that it happened and you can't prove it, pretty much.
Oh, good call. I guess his movie that came out right before his death, I can't remember the name of it, but it's about being somebody who helps a young gay man. That was supposed to be the best role he's ever played. I want to say it was called, hang on a second, but it was very supportive of the gay population, and that was really beautiful.
Maybe Boulevard?
What? Is it called The Boulevard? He gets out and defends this kid. Yeah, you're right. It's Boulevard. I didn't watch it because I can't handle watching anything with him in it still because I'm a baby. I can't watch it yet, but that I heard was absolutely the role of a lifetime for him. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it, no.
Oh, let's watch it. Have you seen Jumanji?
Yes.
That was shot at the town next to me where I live now.
Oh, really?
That's the only thing cool about them. Yeah, you can still see the chew advertisement on the side of the mill, but I tease my wife because I hate the state. I always go to her, that's all you have. That's all you fucking have. She's like, what do you guys have in Mass? Like, everything. True. Good enough. Good point. Good point. I guess it was pretty fucking good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The new one's good too. Night Listener with Robin Williams in it was terrible, but only because the story is based on a true story and it sucks. He was great in it, but based on a true story, and the story is like really bizarre. I didn't see Texas Movie. I never saw. I don't know. If you had to recommend anybody,
I would watch License to Wed. If you haven't seen that movie, it's kind of cheesy, but if you're looking for just a nice chick flick type thing, it's a really good movie. He's good in it. Came out in 2007.
What part of I Don't Cry made you think I want chick flicks? I don't cry. You want a chick flick? Sure. I'm into it.
I'm just saying, if that's what you want. Now, I tried to watch Merry Friggin' Christmas. Came out in 2014. That's also one of his last movies, but I just couldn't get through it.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like again, Jacob the Liar is one of my preferred ones. You've seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That like changed my. That was one of the ones that I went, and I grew up with a mother who taught about the Holocaust all over the world, and I was like, that one blew my mind because I never knew about the radios, and I knew a lot about it. But as far as like his other movies go, I mean, there were so many that were hard to watch, especially after he died. I mean, I told you where I found out. I found out at Disney World, and my wife tried to take my phone just to like protect me. And I remember coming home and going, well, I can't watch anything. Seeing the genie in downtown, I was breaking down and crying, like I couldn't take it. And I cried over maybe him and Michael Jackson, and that's about it. And Nicole Smith, because she makes me upset. She was lovely.
I would say if there's one movie that you should not watch after he dies, it is What Dreams May Come. So.
Really?
Yeah.
What if my wife is there to hold my hand?
It has a happy ending. It has a good ending, but it's a really sad movie.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just take your picture and I'll put it on his body the whole time. And I'll watch
you. You have to be in the right moment to watch that.
Fair, but if I wait for the right moment, I'll never watch anything with emotion because I get so upset that I'm going to cry. I don't know. I would watch it, though. I would watch it just because I haven't seen it, and if I pretend it's on him, and especially if I can manipulate it so your head's on his body, it'll be good. But I don't know how to do that. But if you, again, one of my biggest, have you seen Dead Poets Society? You have, right?
Yes.
Oh, my captain, dude. I can't even think about it without getting upset. But yeah, he was a beautiful actor. He was a beautiful person. What's your favorite stand-up by him? And I'll tell you straight up, I like when he does golf. And I like when he talks about making a duck-billed platypus. But the golf, I mean, that one's great. Have you ever heard Golf by him?
I don't think so.
Oh, when he talks about the creation of the sport, it's so funny. I'll send that to you. What's your favorite part of his stand-up ever?
Favorite part of his stand-up?
Like one of his stand-ups, like one of the parts he does of a stand-up, like one of the things he covers that you like.
I definitely loved when he was talking about the wars, and he starts talking about. I love his bit about Michael Jackson when Michael Jackson dies and goes up to meet God. I thought that was pretty funny.
Is it going to upset you?
I generally wouldn't.
Is that going to upset me though?
No.
Because I love Michael like a lot.
No, only if you can't handle jokes about his nose and stuff like that, maybe.
Oh, that's fine. But if they talk about pedophilia, I'm just going to get mad because I know he can do it. Okay. No. I was going to say, I get wicked sensitive about that.
But he does a good Michael.
I believe it. He could do anybody. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He was amazing. He really is it's a loss, and it's too bad. But it's like at the same time, he leaves such a beautiful legacy, and he brings, I feel like, he brought so much attention and wonderful things. Even though I didn't like the Birdcage, what he did for the gay community with the Birdcage and with the Boulevard was so powerful that you can't help but respect it.
Right.
He was a life changer, for sure.
He was.
Yeah. Next episode, though, what do you want to talk about? 9/11, or can I educate you on Michael Jackson at some point? Because I want to make sure people know what the fuck is up.
Talk about it all.
Okay, whatever you want. Thank you very much for having me and for having me talk to you and for respecting my opinion. And it was wonderful to talk to you and learn from you too.
Yeah, that was fun. All right. Any final words, sir?
No, I think I've said about every other word I need to, and more than that. And we can recap post-recording too. But I'm good, thank you. How about you?
Good. No, I'm just. I feel like I've learned so much in the last couple of days, and it just kind of is weird that here I am looking for just something that will help me understand why Robin Williams killed himself, and again, I'm not finding it.
There's nothing. Yeah, it's so weird. Even with the illness, it doesn't make sense. I mean, in my opinion, I've never been in his shoes, but I can't see him being so affected if it doesn't show up in the scans and the aftermath of the autopsy. If it doesn't show there, then how much could he really have been feeling? So that's what gets me. I always thought the disease progression would scare me too, and I'd want out. But killing yourself, I feel like, is so, at that point in the game, it's like, why? I don't know, though. I'm not trying to be judgmental, but you're right. You got to look for it, and then you're like, but I still have nothing, and you come up empty.
That's right.
I'd be excited to see if anybody hears this and they want to tell us more about it, especially if it's a medical examiner. If they want to correct me, I would love that. If they want to come in and, like, teach us things about what we don't understand, that would be awesome, too. I hope we get people that respond.
Yep. I do,
All right.
too.
Well, then
All
I guess
right.
we'll talk after this, and we're good. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Sounds good. Thanks for
You're
joining.
the man. Take it easy.
All right, Samantha. Talk to you soon.